talking about stewardship with the team at Cause Catalyst. We're going to give it just a second while everyone gets logged in. Let's see who we got here. Drop a note in the chat and tell us where you're coming from. Tell us who you are. We want to know what your organization is. We'd love to have you say hello. Hello, hello. Thank you for joining us. As we get kicked off, I see lots of folks still getting logged in. Hello, Shannon. Hello, Rachel. Hello, Kristen and Karen. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Edith and Diane. We're going to just give you a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. So let me share screen. Hopefully you all can see a little bit of information about today. So first and foremost, I want to make sure you know that the session is being recorded. So as a recording, we will have this available on demand afterwards. It is 2 days. We're here to dive into a lot of great resource in which the Cause Catalyst team is going to give you both some best examples as well as best case scenarios and some practical application that you can begin to apply right away. But if you want to refer back to it, get back to this information, you will find it on our webinar page. So this QR code is to get you there. We will also communicate this to you afterwards and be sure to send you links when it is live. Additionally, this is a partnership that we're doing with the Elevate Conference. The Cause Catalyst team is a sponsor of the Elevate Conference, brings us great content every year to the conference. So we're so glad to have them helping with this webinar today to really dive into stewardship, a topic that we think is so important to donor cultivation. Don't forget about our podcast, The Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. If you don't listen, we hope you'll tune in. It's a weekly podcast where we get to talk to some of the best minds in fundraising. And Erica Soto of the Cause Catalyst team has been on one of our episodes. So we hope that you'll follow along, subscribe, like, share with other folks so you can get to learn from all the amazing folks we talk to. And we have a webinar coming up in May that is going to dive into your event budget. At the Elevate Conference, the #1 request that we received from attendees was to get more information about building an event budget. So our presenter that was on stage that day, Ryan Goodwin, is going to join us and really dive into the how and why about making decisions from the ground up for your event and building that budget. Additionally, if you have a golf tournament, we have a second webinar coming up that will be in June with our friends at Golf Status to dive into fundraising at your golf tournament. So we hope you'll join us. Be sure to check out our webinar page to see all of our webinars. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to the team at Cause Catalyst. So please welcome Erica, Amy, and Veronica.
Thanks, Sam. We are so happy to be here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning. If you're here on the Pacific Coast time, I think maybe even, I guess it's almost lunchtime for you that are over on the East Coast. We are here today and tomorrow to bring clarity and calm and connection to our fundraising efforts. This is a topic that we get really excited about because we really get to see teams have some smooth sailing and really see the needle move in your fundraising. We know that development work is a ton of work. There is a lot of moving priorities and pieces, and without strong systems in place, I know that stewardship can fall to the sideways. So we are here today to bring balance and sustainability to our work in stewardship, specifically so that we can raise more funds with our donors. So today we are talking about why stewardship matters. I think all of us probably know why stewardship matters, but we're going to go down a little bit deeper. Some of this stuff is so basic, but I think it is important for us to remind ourselves of why it's important. So today we're going to be reflecting on what's working in your org and building out tools that you can start using right away. So we really hope today is a practical time of just evaluating where you can improve your stewardship. So before we go on any farther, I do want to introduce the team a little bit more. Thank you, Sam, for my introduction. I'm Erica. I am the founder of the Cause Catalyst and been doing fundraising for a long, long time, but been in business for about a decade. And I love stewardship because it's a way for me to care for people. That's something that's really important to me. And I know that while I do this work, it also means that I get to support the critical work in the communities in which we live, which is also really important to me. So we'll be talking about that all day today and tomorrow. And I want to pass it to Veronica for her introduction.
Hey there, I'm Veronica. And what I love particularly about stewardship is that it shifts the concept of fundraising from just transaction to transformation. And it's not just about securing donations, but it's also about building and bringing the community into your mission. So I hope that what we say to you all today reflects that, and that you can take some practical tips away from this. Now to Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy, and I've been in the fundraising realm with Erica for about 10 years. And I really love stewardship because getting to express gratitude and just to focus on the gratitude in our fundraising, I think it really helps to calm some of the stress that we all feel in development. It's a big job, it's a stressful job. There's a lot of people, a lot of there's a lot weighing on our shoulders. So I think that taking a moment to express gratitude, it really helps me to be more at peace, but it also is just an opportunity to tell others how thankful we are for them. So, yeah.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Veronica. Thanks for sharing. I have a little bit more housekeeping. Thank you, Sam, for setting us up at the beginning, but there's a few more things that we just wanted to be sure everybody knows what to expect for today. Everyone is on mute. This is a webinar, but you can use the chat feature anytime. And Sam, our amazing partner at Swim Strategies, she is driving the chat today. So if there's a question that pops up that's relevant to what we're talking about, she may pop in, let us know about that chat, and we will answer questions on demand as we have time. But we have saved time in each of our sessions to address any questions that might come up in the chat. Also, if there's, have a question that comes up that you don't put in the chat, you think about it later, you can always email us. And as we have time tomorrow, we will try to address some of those questions as well. So I also wanted you to know that we do have, this is a webinar. I know we have a lot of things going on. And so if you have to like jump in and jump out, I'm not quite there yet. I guess I'm not to the next slide yet, but I do have a brief schedule that you can take a picture of when we get to that slide that just kind of lines out where we're going today. Again, I do want to thank Swim Strategies and also Metro Presort who have collaborated with us on this. And so we will be seeing Michael from Metro Presort tomorrow, and he'll be presenting on behalf of their organization and how they can support print strategies. Also, lastly, I want to make sure that if you haven't already, go ahead and share your name and your org and the role that you serve at your organization in the chat. And we would also be curious to know why you love stewardship. Maybe you don't love stewardship yet, but by tomorrow, I hope you do. We will take 2 short breaks today, and all of the slides and tools, they'll be available to you after we're done on Thursday. So here is the schedule for today. If you want to take a quick picture of that, we just have a quick session here in the morning, just welcome here, and then we're going to go into evaluating current practices. At 9:45, we have session 3, scaling stewardship. We'll take a quick break. And then one of our favorite sessions of the day is building out your calendar with Veronica. And then we're going to wrap up with some high dose stewardship talk. So this is our plan for the day. Each of our sessions really they're short sessions. We just want to talk about a couple of points on each session. So you may have more curiosities. You might want to have a deeper conversation. And we do have some other webinars planned later in the year that go into some of these topics in a deeper way. So that is the schedule. Any questions? All right. Well, I thought we should start talking about stewardship by defining stewardship from CCC. So our team, we call it Cause Catalyst. Sometimes we refer ourselves to CCC. So this is our personal definition of stewardship. Stewardship is the intentional care of the people, resources, and trust placed in your hands. It's about showing up with consistency, communicating with heart, and creating meaningful connections that sustain your mission over time. This is what drives us. This is why we do this work. It isn't about a thank you note. It's not about logging something in CRM. For us, it really comes down to caring for people. It's caring for people who we care for within our organizations. It's caring for our volunteers. It's caring for our staff. It's caring for our donors. All of those people are the people that make this work possible. So this is why we take stewardship really seriously and why we spend a lot of time in stewardship. So the other reason why we spend a lot of time in stewardship, this stat probably isn't surprising to anybody. If you're here, you probably are tired of losing donors. You're tired of always having to acquire new donors or chasing after lapsed donors. Nationally, the donor retention hovers around 45%. So acquisition of new donors is super expensive. It's very time consuming. And so strong stewardship really is the way to keep donors engaged. Now, with this stat of 45% nationally, let's just have a little moment. There's some of you in this room today that probably have a higher average. Kudos to you. We're really excited for you. And there's probably some that are less than that. And in my professional experience and with clients that I work with as well, I've worked with some that are above that average and below that average. So this is why we really want to spend most of our time in our office. Most of our time is spent around stewardship, because we know that if we spend time on stewardship, we can boost this donor retention. And when we boost this donor retention, we boost the bottom line in our budgets. And when we boost our bottom lines in our budgets, we have the funds we need to do the work that needs to happen in our communities. So we say this: if you only have time for one thing, we say lean into stewardship. I think in a time where finances are being pinched and nonprofit plates are so full, your plates are so full, we have to think strategically about how we spend our time. And so I truly believe, our team believes, if you have this much time in your day to do fundraising activities, we want to encourage you to lean into stewardship. It has been, in my career, the one thing through all the seasons, all the ebbs and flows, all the hard times, all the high times, when stewardship has been the central thing that I focused on, I always have enough people to care for the work that we're trying to do. So strong stewardship will fuel every aspect of your fundraising and every aspect of your program success. We see it all the time. Organizations that have strong stewardship have strong events. Organizations who have strong stewardship have strong appeals. People who have strong stewardship, they have plenty of volunteers. Stewardship fuels and feeds all the components of your program and your organization. So this is what we're here to do today. We're really excited, and this is why we are talking about stewardship today. So we're just going to keep moving on to our first session. And this is on evaluating your current practices. And I should say, were there any questions in the chat that I need to address before we jump in?
There were not, just lots of hellos and folks joining
Okay.
and welcoming and greeting. So I think that you're good to kick off.
Well, did anybody say why they love stewardship, or did anybody say they don't love stewardship? That's okay.
We have one individual said that they're really excited to be learning a little bit more. They need to really think about this space, and thanks for the education.
Okay. Well, as you feel inspired about stewardship, let us know. Like, put stuff in the chat, and we'll keep our eye on that. So session number 2, evaluating our current practices. So this session is really about analyzing what you currently are doing so that we can identify opportunities for growth. We always think it's easy just to jump in and try to plan something and do something differently. But if you don't have a really good idea of what stewardship looks like right now, today, in your office, how can we improve it? We can't. So we wanted to just start off by talking about a simple flow that our team adheres to. So on this slide, we have this virtuous cycle of giving. This is not our image. This is an image that is from our friends up at the Better Fundraising Company. And we've gone to many of their sessions at different conferences, and they have this cycle: ask, thank, report. It's a real simple flow of, you ask a donor for a gift, and then the donor gives a gift, and then hopefully you thank the donor for their gift. But then there's still this curiosity for the donor, like, what did my gift do? And that's when we have the opportunity to report back to our donor and say, your gift did this, or because of this gift, there's this building. Because of this gift, people received a meal. And then my favorite part is repeat. So our simple flow is ask, thank, report, repeat. Now, this is a perfect world. We know that our time gets constrained, and this foolproof method, it really is foolproof. It's what we want to aspire to. And if this flow is happening one time in your organization a year, fantastic. Let's see if we can build out a second or a third or a fourth. And I know that we personally have, when I was an ED, I inherited an organization that had really two asks a year. And all they did was ask. They asked for money at year end and they asked for money at an event. But the thanking was not impressive and there was absolutely no reporting. So I remember like how hard that season was. We were just hemorrhaging donors, like every single year end, every single event. It was like a new group of people. And it just wasn't sustainable. But it's because they didn't build out this flow. There wasn't an ask, thank, report process in place that was sustainable and achievable for me as a solo fundraiser, one person in the office to be able to even do. So this flow really demonstrates what we aim for, and it's a way that we can communicate with our donors in a regular, steady way. It also like takes away that problem, which I'm going to raise my hand first. I've been there when you get to the point where you have a gala, you have your year end, and it's time to ask for money again, but you realize the last time you talked to them was the last time you asked for money. And so this flow just really helps us to care better for our donors and to communicate about other things other than needing money. So this flow is very paramount to everything that we do at the Cause Catalyst. You will see in motion today so many examples of how this flow is foundational in all the work that we do for our clients.
Can I add something?
Yes, of course.
I would love to add that this flow also works for your volunteers, the people in your community, your board members, your staff, the people who are giving in-kind donations. This is the rhythm that we adopt for them as well, that we believe that everyone is part of that community. It's just, this is a really wonderful model in which to do that. So just wanted to make that addition.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Veronica, because I probably should have had a slide about that. We adhere to like donors give of time, they give of resources, they give of heart. So when we're talking about donors, it's not just donors that write big checks. There's a lot of ways that people engage in organizations, and we like to use the same flow to make sure that we are honoring those people engaged in that way. We actually have a story, I don't know if it's today or tomorrow, but we actually have a really cool volunteer story that we're going to share in one of our sessions. It's a beautiful story. I won't spoil it for now, but it really goes to how this cycle can even engage a volunteer in a deeper level into your organization. Thanks, Veronica, for that note. Okay, so this is the dun question. What happens without solid stewardship? I mean, I could ask some of you, what has happened in your organization when stewardship has been less than you want it to be, when there's been stewardship bobbles, when there's been stewardship neglect? That's a strong word, but actually it happens a lot. Stewardship neglect happens all of the time, and it's crippling our fundraising efforts. So we know what happens when we adhere to strong stewardship. We feel confident. There's a lot of ease and margin in what we do. We don't have any shame or guilt around making a phone call to a donor to ask them to do something or to even meet with us. When we have strong stewardship, we get to see the amazing things that grow as a fruit of our discipline. And I just want to talk about that word discipline. Stewardship does take discipline. It takes a plan, it takes discipline. But what I have learned is just even a little bit moves the needle a lot. And that's what we're really going to get to today. So let's ask the other question. What happens without solid stewardship? Well, I have some stories to share about what happens without solid stewardship. I mean, the Cause Catalyst Co, part of the reason why we started was because of all the mistakes, I'll say, all the opportunities of learning that I learned early in my career when I was really young and just learning fundraising when I was in my 20s. But these are some of the stories that I've learned along the way. So I share them with you, and I'm hoping there's people in the room that can relate at least to a couple. I'll feel a little bit better about myself. So what many organizations experience, what I have experienced. So I want to remind us real quick, again, about our definition of stewardship. Stewardship is the intentional care of people, resources, and trust placed in your hands. It's about showing up with consistency, communicating with heart, and creating meaningful connections that sustain our mission over time. So here are some things that I have seen play out when stewardship is lacking. So the first one is the leaky bucket. We work so hard to capture new donors and retain the ones that we have, but many of them just get drained out of the bucket because of lack of follow through or late or sloppy stewardship or not having a plan at all. So this to me is grievous. Always makes me sad when we spend the time and the money on an event or on an appeal or on some kind of initiative, and then it's a one-time gift. There's lots of reasons why we have leaky bucket fundraising. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But my absolute favorite one is well, we call this like the oh crap fundraising, excuse me, but it is the oh crap fundraising. And you might know exactly what I mean. It's that moment when you're about to ask a donor or sponsor for something and it dawns on you, oh my gosh, I never thanked them. You never reported back or you failed to follow through on something. It really is this oh crap moment. What are you going to do? Our team gets this call a lot from clients or people looking for help. In fact, for the last 2 years, we've had 2 different client engagements with this very issue. Someone in the organization was going to ask for the next gift, for the next gala, the next appeal, something along those lines. And the response was from the donor, I would happily give. And I would be happy to give if I knew that I could get a thank you note or at least an acknowledgement letter for my gift. Who has been there? I I bet more of us have been there than not. It's not a great place for building trust and confidence and showing care for our donors. I reread our definition because again, it comes down to care. Now, these situations can be overcome. We're actually watching one be overcome right now with, just by caring for donors. Yes, a mistake happened. I forgot to do that thing. You can care. And so this OCRAT fundraising, I want to say personally, is very exhausting. It's very exhausting. It's hard. It's hardest on you. It's hardest on us as fundraisers. It's hardest on our team, hard on our board. It's exhausting, but it also is hard on our donors. So we really spend a lot of time to avoid the OCRAP fundraising. You'll see a lot of our systems in play. We have in place so that we make sure that we always are closing the loop with our donors and we're caring for them well. So the next one I have on here is the good old hamster wheel. I feel like, it doesn't even need much explanation. Most of our days, like you wake up, you put your feet on the ground and you run until you collapse. I don't want that to be the norm for our space in nonprofit, but our work sometimes is a nonstop sprint. It's one thing after another, and we are just trying to keep our feet on the wheel. And we oftentimes will start the next thing before giving ourselves enough time for the next campaign. So we don't give ourselves much margin because we're just running, doing busy. So the last one I share in a very vulnerable way is this under the covers moment. I actually talk about this in the Fundraising Elevator podcast. And I talk about the moment where I found myself as an ED so overwhelmed that I literally was in bed with the covers over my head. I was immobilized and overwhelmed by the amount of work that had to be done and the gap between what I was doing and what my heart wanted to do. I wanted to care well for the donors, but there was just too much to do. There wasn't the systems to support it. There wasn't the help. And I also remember I will say it was during COVID and my office was in my bedroom. So it was very easy just to be like, I'm just going to give up today. This is too much. This is too much work. But I know that I wasn't the only one that, that's had moments like that where it gets so overwhelming that we just don't know where to take the next step. One of my highlights I've been talking a lot about, my team hears me talk about this all the time. But it was advice that we received from an educational psychologist, and we were talking about avoidance and procrastination. And she said, actually, if you're procrastinating, it's not that you just don't want to do it. It's just that the first step is too big. So you need to find a smaller first step. And we've been talking a lot about that in my house, in our team. If something feels overwhelming, the first step is just too big. And so when I think about stewardship, I think a lot about that thought of sometimes our stewardship work, it feels so big And it's like, we have to do stewardship. Well, what the heck is stewardship? And we have the donor who might give $50,000. We have the monthly donor who's giving $5 a month. How the heck do we care for all those people in a meaningful, connected way with no plan and with little help? So we have a promise and we're going to keep to it. We promise there's a better way. That moment when I was in the bed with covers over my head and I didn't want to do nonprofit work anymore, I realized there's got to be a better path forward. We have to find ways to make this work more sustainable so that people like us that are doing this work can stay in the work. If we can't stay in the work, it's such a loss to our communities. We love people, we love our communities, and we engage and give to our communities. We are a really important asset to our communities, and we need to be well, we need to be strong, and we need to be supported. So I think before we move forward, it's always great to do a gentle evaluation of where we are today. Now, I want to just say gentle. Like I have been, I've had times in my life where I'm really critical of myself. I have really high expectations, and I can just pick apart all the things I'm doing wrong, all the things I could be doing better. But I really want us to be gentle with ourselves as we like jump into some evaluation. This is a part where, we want to pull back the curtain, like, okay, what could I do better? What's not happening? What do I need to address? We all have things. We all have things that we need to improve, and we call them opportunities. We have opportunities ahead of us. So I wanted just to spend a moment talking about some of the common gaps that we see. Now, just to give you some framework about the Cause Catalyst, at this very moment in time, we have clients ranging from budgets of $100,000 a year all the way up to $98 million a year. So across the board, I mean, that's a pretty wide, that's a pretty wide scope there. But across the board, we see some of these common gaps with the organization that has a budget of 100,000, and we also see some of these things with the organization that has a budget of 98 million. So here are some of the things that we see most often. So first of all, we see organizations, I don't know how they do it, but it's tough. We see organizations with no databases. If you don't have a database, we're going to have a different conversation. It is impossible to do stellar stewardship without a database, unless you have 3 donors. Okay. We also see messy databases that had many different people contributing to them. There's really no cadence. There's no form to it, or having staff that don't know how to use it. And, I'm going to be honest, sometimes I'm the staff that doesn't know how to use the CRM. Okay. So all CRMs are different, and this isn't a session on CRMs, and we're not necessarily experts on CRMs, but we've used a lot of CRMs. But these are things that trip people up. If your team doesn't know how to use your database, either need to get trained on it, or we need to find a different solution for you. So number 3, I want to talk about no clear process or regularly scheduled time to complete stewardship tasks. Things are ad hoc, or they get pushed to the perimeter. Now, this can be like a quiet raise your hand moment, but how many of you have regularly scheduled time on your calendar that says stewardship, handwritten notes, phone calls to donors, meeting with donors, open house with donors? Like, how many of us have these things on our calendars?
Drop a note in the chat with yes if you have that scheduled on your calendar.
Yay. Okay, this is awesome. Great. I was slow to do this for myself. So I love that many people have this on their calendars. Okay, maybe you'll be do a session tomorrow for us. Well, actually, we do have a session tomorrow about this. So I am curious to pick your brains on these things. So I love that many of you have time on your calendars, but many clients that we see, they just don't plan it. It's not on the calendar. And you know why I make it to my 6-month cleaning, dental cleaning every 6 months is because when I'm in the chair, they say 6 months out, do you like mornings or do you like afternoons? I make an appointment and I go. I get the text 2 days before. If I don't go, they're going to charge me $100. And so I make it. We make it to the appointments that we schedule.
Eric, I have a question for you
Yeah.
before you move on from that, because we see some folks have it regularly scheduled. Some folks have, we see Jen responded that she has 4 per year. What, I know you're going to cover more of this, but what schedule do you usually recommend? Is this a daily schedule activity, a weekly schedule, a monthly schedule, quarterly?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm glad we're going to talk about that real quick. I think everybody's cadence is going to be a little bit different. I'm personally moving more to a model of doing stewardship activities every day, move the needle every day. I think there are some activities that need to be done that could be scheduled as quarterly, monthly, those types of things. But there's things on my calendar. I know like Amy on our team, she does most of the CRM work and updating that. I know she's in the CRM daily and at least weekly doing reports. That's scheduled time. I know for me, I do a lot of front facing donor time. I block off 3 to 4 days a month on my schedule, where I know and I anticipate that I'm going to be having FaceTime with people. And then I have time blocked on my calendar every day for phone calls. And so I do most of the phone calling on my team for major donors. And so I schedule an hour at least, where I'm going to be making those kinds of calls. I feel like stewardship needs to be like a workout, like just doing it every day. My daughter has this term, save up Sally. She's a swimmer and she's always talking about like at the last bit, she's going to like push through. And that's also really exhausting in stewardship because we have to remember our donors are also very busy and their schedules may not line up with our really condensed schedule. So I think by chopping up our work over time to make it be a daily activity, it just takes the pressure off. And for me personally, it allows me to, when I am in front of a donor, knowing that I've parsed out some of this work throughout my week, every single day. When I'm in front of a donor, I have a lot of peace and I have a lot of confidence and I show up different. So this is my mini, we'll talk about this a lot tomorrow, but this is my mini conversation on the more you can do this on the daily, the more ease you're going to have in your fundraising.
Awesome. Jen says that her quarterly is a stewardship event. I will drop in the chat to a podcast episode with Juan Martinez, who is like a development director who is so skilled at that scheduled stewardship. So folks have another reference to go to.
I love that. And I love that you have like a quarterly event that you can feed people into. So I probably would backwards engineer that a little bit and be like, okay, this is what I'm trying to achieve at this event. These are going to be my activities leading up to that. So I can even just optimize those times. The fact that you've already like protected that time is beautiful. I love that. And you're already thinking the way that I think makes stewardship a little bit lighter and more, it's just easier to do. It also brings on the element that you can engage your team in helping you with stewardship. When there's like something on the calendar, everybody knows about it, then you can flow people into contributing to that activity. Thanks for the question. Okay, so we already talked about this a little bit. The other thing we see across the board, again, is not leaving enough time in between campaigns, events to wrap up stewardship and to get ready for the next initiative. And also, can we just say this too? Have a little bit of rest. Like, it's not fun. I've been there so many times where I've showed up to an event or an activity and my hair's not done and I just go into it feeling ragged. And that's what happens when we just pile things up and we don't give ourselves enough cushion to do our best work. Also, I see a lot of times that priority is only placed on the top donors with little cultivation of your monthly, your mids, your corporate partners. And on the opposite, sometimes I see that there's no time spent with major donors because you just don't know how to do it. So I see the flip side in organizations. And it's interesting when I look at the numbers, like the numbers tell us a story. Like I can almost guess what's happening when I look at numbers. So as we really take a peek at our own efforts in these areas, I call them snaggy areas. I just want everybody to know that you're not alone. You are not alone in these snags and these hurdles. And there really is, as we said, we promise, there is a path forward that brings so much more ease and calm. And I hope that it also brings you a lot of peace and joy in the work that you do. So Amy is going to share with us a little bit about something we call the donor love audit.
Yes. So before we jump into this, I just want to preface it by saying that this is just a simple reflective exercise that can help you take stock of the stewardship practices that are happening in your organization or the ones that might be slipping through the cracks. And so as I read each question, I want you to take a moment to think it through for your own organization. Feel free to jot down any notes or reactions. And don't worry, we won't be sharing our answers at the end. And there's definitely no judgment. This is just a chance where you can identify where you're already doing really great work and then where there might be room to grow. And this isn't to overwhelm you, it's to give you a clear, honest look at your donor experience from the inside out. And we hope that at the end of our sessions, we can give you some little baby steps to move some of these things forward easily. So let's begin. Do all donors receive a thank you within 48 hours of giving? Do thank you messages clearly state the impact of the gift? Do you segment your thank you notes for different gift types, for recurring or major or in-kind donors? Do you track donor anniversaries or milestones? Do you send at least one non-ask communication per donor each quarter? So next, how personal are you? Do you regularly use donor names in emails, letters, and reports? Do donors ever hear directly from program staff, beneficiaries, volunteers, bringing some other voices into your reporting? Do your communications sound like a real person wrote them and not just a template? Do you use video, voice, or photos and thank you messages, maybe just bringing in some creativity? Do any donors receive handwritten notes, personal calls, or one-on-one meetings? And so now, rhythm and consistency. Do you have a written stewardship plan or calendar for the year? Do you schedule donor touch points outside of appeals? Are donors hearing from your organization more than once between giving opportunities? Do you report back on outcomes, not just outputs? And is stewardship treated as a team-wide responsibility, not just the ED or your development team? And then lastly, feedback and follow through. Do you ask donors for feedback about their experience or communication preferences? Do you follow through on your promises? We'll keep you updated. We'll send you a tax letter and you do it without delay. Do you track lapsed donors and follow up with care and not guilt? Have you ever surveyed donors about why they give? This is one that we love to throw onto a reply device. And then do you ever say thank you just because with no gift attached? So how did you do? If you answered mostly yes, then you've got a really strong foundation. Maybe we can help you with a little refining and fresh creativity to keep it warm and consistent. If you answered mostly sometimes, then you're on the right track. Maybe there are a couple of areas that you can focus on in the next quarter to just elevate it a little bit. Or if you answered mostly no, you're not alone. And we have been there and we're here to help. So set some goals for your next quarter and go from there. Our hope is that as we move through the sessions the next couple days, that you can learn some strategies and tools that will help this to be a little more seamless, a little more streamlined, and just really skyrocket your stewardship. So back to you, Erica.
Erica, I want to jump in here for a second because Edith asked about these slides. It's a great list, Amy, I was watching it thinking, oh gosh, I have a lot of no's on here. So Edith asked the question of, can I get this list? The donor love audit, is it a way that we can get access to it? And
Yes.
I wanted to answer that I have a link to it, Edith, and I'm going to drop it in the chat for you so that you can easily get this as well as some of the other templates they're going to share today.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Amy, for sharing that. And when we created this audit, we almost didn't want to create it because we didn't want to overwhelm anybody. But there's something about knowing where you're at. The things you measure, the things you analyze are the things that can grow. And I am a new gardener and I am learning. Amy actually teaches me a lot. Veronica does too. I am learning that in order for me to make my garden pretty, I have to spend time in it. I have to get familiar with the dirt and the soil and all the different things that plants need to grow. And stewardship is exactly the same. We have to spend some time in it. And I think this audit does that. It helps us answer those questions. And I would say it's not a bad idea to do this audit, like run yourself through the audit, once or twice a year, once a quarter. And if you have a team, have your team go through it. And I think it's just a great spot check of the things that are really thriving. We have a client right now who has a really thriving monthly donor program. It's just like it's growing really, really well. But it's because we planned. We spend a lot of time talking about it and nurturing it and really stewarding it well. And so when you do this audit, look at the things that you can improve, but please also celebrate the things that are growing, the things that you are seeing take flight because of the work and time that you put into it. So as we kind of close this session, I want you to reflect for a moment, what's an opportunity of growth that you have identified in your stewardship? I'll just give you a minute to think about that. If you feel inclined, we'd love for you to also put that in the chat. And it might provide encouragement to somebody else too, who's like, you know what? I also want to grow that area of my stewardship.
Erica, you had already, Louise jumped in and said that the reminder about video messaging was such a great tip and really hit on sustainability initiatives that the organization is using of less paper and more heart. Can you talk a little bit about what tool you use for video messaging?
So here's my secret magic weapon. It's my phone. And first of all, I am, if you've worked with me before, I'm not the fanciest person in the world. And I don't need to have like all the newest, nicest platforms to be able to do good stewardship. And so I sometimes get stuck in learning new things, like a new platform, and I want to be able to move quickly and authentically. So oftentimes I'll use my phone to do a video, and it will be like, hey, I'm sitting here at my desk, or actually I do it sometimes in my garden. Like, here's my new plant. I want you to see my plant. And I was just thinking of you today. Really just personal, like Erica every day type of video. And the thing is, it costs me no money. I don't have to send it to anybody. So I use that a lot if I have a texting relationship or even an email relationship with a donor, them seeing my face, them hearing my them, seeing my hair in a ponytail, whatever it is, that's relational. That's how we show up with our friends, right? So as your relationship grows, you can use that tool. Now, if you want a little bit more of a polished look, we do use a tool called BombBomb. And we use BombBomb a lot for our clients who maybe need us to help them get this content out. So our client will make a video and they'll send us the video. And then in BombBomb, you can, depending on which level you have, you can have a real basic one that has, a branded template that you can put captions on. You can put, action buttons on there, like to donate today or to schedule an appointment with the ED, click here. And then you can also have a chat feature. So BombBomb actually would be like probably one of my recommendations for the next, if you want something a little bit more polished, or if you're going to be sending out messages on behalf of somebody else, that's a wonderful tool. There's some options in Canva that we've used too, that we've done videos too. So, really inexpensive. So your phone, Canva would be next, and then BombBomb would be next. There are a multitude of softwares that can do that for you. And you'll hear us talk about this today and tomorrow. Use the tool you're going to use. Like, buy the tool you're going to use. Like, don't spend the next 3 hours researching which tool you're going to use to send videos. Like, we have tools at our fingertips that cost us nothing and have really low friction to get them into use.
Louise shared that they have great audio video capabilities and they just don't use them enough, but it's such a great tool for authenticity. Also, you had a note. I want to make sure, I know Veronica saw it, but I want to make sure you saw it, Erica. And Amy Foster says the donor love audit sounds awesome and they're going to slap that link so hard. So I wanted to share that. I would recommend that tool, the donor love audit, as a tool to engage your board in. If you're trying to get your board of directors to engage thank you notes or that personal touch when a donor gives, that is such a great just reflective exercise. And might out of it be a tool that they could indicate the activity that they would most be interested in getting involved in.
And I think when your board can see it like that, it's almost like a menu of like, oh, like,
Yeah.
and remember, they're not fun, not some of them are, but a lot of them don't have fundraising experience. And so if they know that they can, I did a session on this with one of our boards we worked with, like talking about fundraising activities. And when they saw the list of fundraising activities, they're like, oh, well, I can do that. I can be a fundraiser. So that's the other thing. I'm glad you brought that up because our boards, they do most often want to help. They just don't know how to help, or we don't give them enough onboarding and time and training to identify what the thing is that they're going to be doing. And so, yes, I would like print this off, share it. Maybe we'll put it in a more digital form for you all. But we just hope it's a tool that really helps you to identify other areas to make your stewardship more robust. I also had one other thought, random thought, which happens sometimes to me. Back to having a team that has audio visual. If you have a team that can do audio visual for you, I like to block and batch stuff. And so what I mean by that is if I have a team that can produce videos for me, either like free or cheap, and they can be really, really polished, that's another stewardship activity you can calendar. And you can say, hey, we're going to be filming on these 3 days this year. And these are the things that we want to get done. And you can start flowing people into those days. So if you have, because we all know audiovisual, like you can't just, some people do. I don't have this resource, but you just say, oh, I want a video for tomorrow. You know, if I want a video for tomorrow, it's going to be my iPhone. I'm just going to be honest with you. But if you have that in-house expertise, plan, and get your people on board to it. Give it calendar space and really utilize it to its fullest potential. That's a huge gift, and I'm a little bit jealous, but I'm happy for you. So any other questions before we move on to session number 3? Okay. All right. So we are on to session number 3, and this is about scaling our stewardship without losing connection. And I've had to learn as being like when I started a nonprofit, I was a one person show. And I was like a halftime ED. I had to do all the things, check the mail, change the garbage, like, pay the bills, sign the 990, all those things. And so it was during that role that I had to figure out how can I care for people well with a limited amount of time and not make my stewardship feel like marketing or sales. And I know there's a place for like polished collateral, and I am always trying to do like the fundraising that feels right to me. So I'm just going to share that. And what feels right to me is how I'd write a note or how I would communicate with a friend, right? So it's nearly impossible with our small teams. And I don't even know like what our budget sizes are in this webinar, but we probably our average, like the size of organization that we most often work with is probably between like the $600,000 a year mark to like 2 million. Like that's usually like what we're working with. So you just have an idea of what our times, even with that size of budget, it's nearly impossible to do all of the things that we could do in stewardship. There's always going to be more work and more opportunities than we actually have time for. And we also are working with people. And when we're working with people that have their own moving pieces, that's a lot to manage. Even I share, I plan ahead, like my 3 or 4 days that I'm going to be in the field working with donors. Well, what are the chances that the donor I want to see is going to be in town on the specific days that I'm going to be there? Well, I get a lot of no's, and our schedules always don't link up. So that's just one example of of all the different moving pieces that we're working, and why it makes scaling stewardship very hard, but also so important. So I want to say that you don't have to do everything to be successful in your stewardship. Not all of us have access to a videographer. That's okay. You can do other things. But I really think before we start designing what our stewardship looks like, we have to be really familiar with what our donor constituency is. And based on what our donor constituency is, we have to start then to design solutions that will work and be scaled to your team and the time that you have. So in this session, we want to walk you through how we think about our donor constituency and then how we scale our efforts without losing meaningful connection. We don't want to just put everybody in a sales engine and push automation. Like that's not us. That's not how we like to do fundraising. And so this session really is about how we can make simple, thoughtful touch points that really lead to a big impact. So I'm not sure how y'all feel about this, but we don't think that everything that we produce in our office for stewardship needs to be customized in order to be meaningful. But a consistent rhythm of simple, thoughtful touch points throughout the year will make a bigger impact than just one perfect thank you. And when I'm coaching, especially newer development directors or development associates who are responsible for a lot of the stewardship, I can sometimes run into like a lot of overthinking. And so what we've tried to design is it's like some pre-thinking. Any overthinkers in the room? I want to have lunch and coffee with the overthinkers because you do your homework. You do your homework, you analyze, you know all the things that could go right, all the things that could go wrong, all the things that you need to do. And so it is a superpower in my mind. But one thing that we have learned is if we can do some pre-thinking around our stewardship outside of the moment of actually having to do the stewardship, there's a lot more calm and confidence going into the work of stewardship. And so we want to introduce to you giving tables today. I'm not sure if anybody has worked in giving tables. If you know this term, giving tables, like say yes, you know what we're talking about. And really giving tables are so simple, but they've been a great tool for us to really pre-decide how we will steward a donor before donor even makes the gift. So we make a lot of hypotheses on like, okay, if donor A gives this is how we're going to reach out to them. In general, this is how we think about monthly donors. In general, this is how we're going to thank a monthly donor. In general, this is how we're going to thank and engage with a first-time donor. In general, this is how we're going to, this is a kind of communication engagement we're going to do with a major donor. So we really tried to plan. We love a plan. My team really loves a plan. Veronica like perks up with a plan and a spreadsheet. Amy does too. But it's because when we have a plan, we can be prepared. And when we are prepared, we do our best work. So we want to spend a little bit of time, and Amy's going to come back here, and we're going to spend a little bit of time talking you through what the heck a giving table is and how to create it. And then how is this even going to help me? So Amy, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Mhm. So the giving table is really going to help us define our tiers of donors. And like Erica was saying, that customization is possible when you know your constituency. So defining our donor tiers will help you plan stewardship for each level. And one thing to think about as we're talking about giving levels, you'll see in my example that I'm pulling donor data of monetary donations. So while we're going through this exercise, also keep in mind the people in your community who are giving in other ways. So like your stellar volunteers, your gala committee who spends, 12 hours making flower arrangements for your gala. So just think about the other people that are involved in your community who give in different ways, because we will tell you that we also include them in these tiers. So for this example, I'm going to just be talking about how to tier your donors by their gift level. So the first step is to just look at your data. And so for this example, I pulled from my CRM a list of donors, and these are all fake donor names, who gave in 2024. And I included the total from each donor for that year. And then I sorted the spreadsheet from highest to lowest. And then I looked at the number of donors who gave in specific ranges. And I color coded this so that you could see this level right here on the left for 2024 is how many donors who gave at 5,000 and above for this example. And then in the yellow is 2,500 to 5,000. So I just kind of look to see like how I can chunk this out into segments of donors based on giving level. And then I pulled the same list for 2023 so I could compare those two years. And then from there, I have a giving table, and this is also something we have on our resource page if you're interested in checking that out. And based on the tiers that I identified in my spreadsheet, I plugged those into the giving range over here on the left. And then the next step is to put in the number of donors in each giving range and then the total. So this really gives you an idea of, in that giving range, how many donors do I have at my highest level? How many donors are giving at the lower level? And your table will absolutely look different than this one. This one's just a sample. If your largest donor gives $100,000 per year, then your top tier might be like 25,000 and up. Or if your largest donor gives 1,000 per year, then your tiers might be like 1 to 100, and then your mid tier might be 100 to 500, and then 500 to 1,000. So it's totally customizable to your organization. And if you're thinking about all the time and energy and all the things that you have to do in your development office, and you want to do something special for your top donors, you can look at your chart and see, oh, I have 6 donors that are my top donors. And then you can plan some specific outreach to them. Or let's say you have 20 reports that you have time to do a handwritten note on. And that's what you can handle. Then you can just look at your top 2 tiers and say, okay, I'm going to send this handwritten note with a report to my top 2 tiers. So this also helps you identify areas of growth. So in this example, we had fewer donors at the lower level between year 2023 and 2024. That's because we did a travel raffle in 2023 that we didn't do in 2024. So we didn't retain some of these donors just because they were giving to a specific thing. But you can see that this mid-level right here, that we grew that by 6 donors, which is great. So the one thing that this giving tier doesn't really show us is our monthly donors, and we do very specific planned outreach for our monthly donors because they can be in lots of different tiers, but they're showing up 12 times a year. So we do plan specific outreach for our monthlies, but that's kind of how you can set up a basic giving table to sort of figure out where your constituency is. So Erica, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Amy. We love giving tables. When we started doing giving tables, it really helped us we removed a lot of friction from our minds. And I love the example that Amy said, that she said, hey, I have time to do 20 reports with a handwritten note. Who do those go to? And so you can go back to your giving table and you're like, okay, it's going to be everybody who gave a gift this year at 2,500 and above. It starts to help you customize your stewardship without taking your time. And it also helps you get really familiar with what your constituency even looks like. I ask, like, if I'm like talking with a potential new client, and I ask a lot of questions like, how many constituents do you have in your database? How many are active? What's your greatest gift? What's your, how many people do you have in your monthly giving program? Like, these are numbers that when you become very familiar with, you can handle your stewardship with a lot more confidence. So we wanted to, I'll also say this too. I am like the queen of taking imperfect action. It drives some people in my life crazy, not naming any names, but some may be in the room. But that is one of my superpowers, is I'm able to take imperfect action. And this kind of activity is a little bit of like that imperfect action taking. We're asking you to pick some numbers from a hat, like in general, where do you think your numbers fall? And for some of you who are a little bit more analytical and want more framework, this activity might feel nebulous to you. But I do want to we have about 10 more minutes left in this session. And I do want to spend time walking through this giving table. I'm not sure if you have access to your database or if you in general have an idea, but I really want you to think about right now, like if you were to do if you were to do this giving table and you have access to it, like what would your numbers be? And it's a little bit of trial and error. Like when we do it, like we do a lot of, we're in the work of many clients and in their CRM. So we get a pretty good idea of like in general where things are at. So the way we approach it is we take our general thought of like, okay, I think actually, Amy, when we did this report for this particular client, what we guessed was right. Isn't that what happened? I mean,
Yeah.
we have done a lot of stewardship for this client. So I gotta say that like we had that muscle. We'd done the work, so we knew. But we plugged those numbers in what we thought they were gonna be. And then Amy then pulled the reports to see if our assumption was right. And in this case, it was. But what you can do is you plug those numbers in and then you pull the reports. And if the reports are like it's really lopsided, that's when you can like change your levels. For this example, I think there was five levels.
Yeah.
And this is probably a little bit more for tomorrow that we're going to talk about. But when we have these levels, we could see like one of the wins for this particular giving table for us with this particular client was the growth at the 1,000 to 24.99 level. Like that was actually an initiative. Like we really wanted to like build that up. That was specifically, and this is really Sam's expertise. We really wanted to grow that number in preparation for their gala. There just wasn't enough people in the room at those like mid to higher levels. And so we had a lot of initiatives around how do we grow the people that are in the 250, 999 to 1,000 and above. And so we were really happy, even though we lost some people at the top and we lost some people at the bottom. The bottom, we lost people because it was, I don't want to call it dumb, but it was dumb. Like the travel auction, the travel raffle thing, different story. That's like something we could talk about over happy hour or something. But those are all transactional gifts. They bought stuff. And so like the likelihood that they come into the game again is low. So we weren't surprised by that fall off at the lowest levels. And on the top level, it literally was two donors. It was two donors. And this happens with our major donors. They're, depending on like if their money's coming from corporate, private, a DAF, I mean, stock, it all, it's always in flux. And so we weren't completely surprised by that. They still gave, they just didn't give at the highest levels that they had in the past. So anyways, as you approach this,
Erica, you have some questions. So I just want to make
yeah,
sure
yeah.
you know
Let's hear
that you've
questions.
sparked some questions.
Oh, I love questions. Let's do that.
Also an observation, Amy, this is a really compelling tool to me because it takes specific data and turns it into generalized data that doesn't have anyone's personal information in it, that then could be fed into AI for an analysis as well. So that idea that you could take your organization's information, but strip out and remove things like people's contact names and their, contact numbers and just say, this is a giving, table of my organization's history. Can you do an analysis for me and help to make some recommendations for stewardship activities? And AI might have some tools for that. First question you have, Rachel Alford asked for some examples of what monthly donor stewardship looks like.
Well, the first thing that we do, and Amy's going to talk about this, I think tomorrow, is hopefully you have an automation that you update every once in a while that gives them an automatic thank you gift or gift acknowledgement in the email. We also do thank you notes. We don't do them handwritten thank you notes every month for monthly gifts, but we do them regularly. And for us in this, I'm thinking about this one particular client, July is a kind of a slower month for us with them. And so we do like a whole like thank you campaign to our monthly donors that includes a handwritten thank you note and usually like some kind of token of appreciation, very small, very, very small, low cost item that we send to them. And we also do like special reports from the ED for them. So they kind of get they get email communication that's like customized to their monthly program. Our favorite thing, and this isn't going to work for everybody, but we have this program called Gems, Give Every Month. We named it, and we call our people Gems. And this is the program that has like a lot of monthly giving. Like monthly giving has saved this organization, to be honest with you. But we do this Gems event, which also is like we invite them, we thank them for being a gem. Thank you for giving every month, and they get to come to an event that's hosted by another gem. and it's literally free for us, but literally it's a wine and charcuterie snack type of thing in somebody's beautiful backyard. And it's like an up close and personal report of what's going on. And so you can do that in person. You could also do that via Zoom. If your people are scattered about this particular organization, most of their donors they live in the same area. But that GEMS event, that exclusive GEMS event, has been very, very popular. And then you get all these people together, and we're not asking for money. We're not asking them to do anything. We're just showing our appreciation. And people, it's just growing. It's just growing because people love being part of it. We also did something which Sam's in the room. So Sam, if this is a really bad, corny idea, like let me know. But like we started having when they come to the event, like there's just like we have like this little what is it even, like a pin or something, Amy?
That's
Like,
not corny at all.
okay,
A
so
magnetic
Wait,
pin.
let
we
me
got
tell
these
you
like
why though, because that's tapping into the neuropsychology of belonging and connection. So when you give someone a signifier like that, like I'm a member of the club, it
Mhm.
also allows you to see, oh, I'm a part of something with other people, which that's not corny at all. That's fantastic.
What kind of filled our eyes with tears at a recent event was somebody showed up with their GEMS pen.
I love it.
And he's like, I haven't got my gem pin on. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So we love our monthly donors. Personally, I am a monthly donor. Like that's probably where most of my giving goes. So I identify and like that's how I give. Like I slot out my money. So I might have a little bit of a bias to the monthly people, but I'm gonna tell you, your monthly people are amazing. They give 12 times a year without you asking. And so those are the checkpoints. And again, we're talking a lot about planning. We plan these things because if you don't plan them, it does become an oh crap moment. And then you miss your opportunity to thank them. Or that's when this particular client too, we don't get people who are saying like, oh, I need to stop my gift. Or when a credit card expires, they just go away. They call and they say, oh, my credit card's expiring. I need to update it because they do feel like they're part of something. And we've spoken and that's one thing too we'll talk about tomorrow is when we're talking to these segments of donors, we write that like as a monthly donor, you give every month. And because you give every month, like family visitation is made possible because of you. So like we just make sure we know that they're a monthly donor. And so it's just those slight little things. Again, we're talking a lot about margin. And this giving table, it gives you that margin to be able to just like think about it in groups. It's not going to be perfect. Again, I started with that. I'm like the queen of taking imperfect action, but doing something's intentional is going to move the needle than doing nothing or doing something messy. Were there other questions that I missed?
We had two folks that had their hands up, Serena Boyce and Meredith, I think, had their hands up. So if you had a question, feel free to drop it in the chat or raise your hand again and we'll turn on your mic and you can ask the question. Happy to support. Oh, good. Hand back up. Nope. We are happy to answer any questions that you have. We want to make sure you walk away with good information. Erica, while we give folks a chance to drop their questions in the chat in case they had a question when their hand was raised, I would also add that one of my favorite connections as a donor in the sort of like monthly touch points as a regular donor to organizations is when there is news to share about the organization, being kind of the first to know. We have Charlene on the call today, who is with Council for the Homeless in Vancouver, Washington. And they recently had a lot of media coverage for some work that they're doing. And that media coverage was sent out and it was so exciting to receive and see like my contribution as a donor is creating that kind of visibility for them, but also that kind of impact. So, and Juan Martinez, who I referenced earlier, he's with Latino Network and he will call and just do a call down list to his major donors, that top like 21 donors in your top 2 tiers and say, we have news to share. We want you to be the first to know. It's coming out tomorrow. So you get that kind of like insider club, just like the GEM does. And I don't know if you know Susan Howlett's work on the research of giving, but one of the number one reasons why people give is because they feel a sense of belonging. And that's ultimately what stewardship is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And tomorrow,
Yeah, and go ahead, Veronica.
Amy's gonna get very granular with this kind of stuff. So
excellent.
So when it comes to major donors, how you kind of those outreach points, how you do that, she'll get very granular in how we approach it. just as a plan, and then you customize it for each client or your organization for how it is. So
So I haven't seen those hands go back up, so I think you're good to move on. You must have answered the question already, Erica.
Good. All right. Yeah. Tomorrow, Amy does get granular on this and we start looking at the giving table. And as like Sam gave that example, like Juan would be like, I have time to make 20 phone calls, personal phone calls. Maybe he would take the top 20. And then maybe we'd ask the board to take the next, take those mid-level folks and give them a call. And maybe those at the like the 1 to 250, we might send out a pre-recorded message via Fly, which we're going to talk about that. So it starts to like, we touch everybody, but we use a different tool and method in order to touch them based on how much time we have. And we haven't really talked about this, but I am almost certain that most of us don't have a major donor gift, major gift officer on your team. Um, I mean, I'm seeing less and less organizations have somebody solely dedicated to the stewardship of major donors. And so I think especially for all of us who have roles where we are caring for the expanse of the donors that we have to start thinking like this and start practicing and giving ourselves permission. I think I started this. I think it feels like it's been so far long ago when we started this, but I feel like I started it by saying, you don't have to do everything. And we will care for everyone, but we don't have to do everything. And so I think this is, I think we're getting into some momentum. We're kind of getting to the day where there's going to be momentum, and hoping you're starting to see what's possible and that you're going to have a little bit of time freedom in this next season of your work. So I think that ends. Let me see if I had anything else on my notes here. Yeah, I think that ends this session, and I think we made it to a break, everybody. We have because we got 3 minutes extra. I think we have about a 13-minute break, and we're going to be back here in 13 minutes, and we're going to get into one of our other favorite things is calendaring, which is one of my favorite sessions. Veronica is going to be leading that, and she's going to show us how we manage all of this fun work together. So go outside, get some water. Veronica, do you have any thoughts before?
it will go into specific examples. So you have great ideas, you have great stewardship ideas. How do you implement them with all the other things that are going on? You usually go into situations where there's a lot going on in an organization already, programmatically or whatever it is. So how do you make sure that you can execute these things? It's an intensely practical session. That's where I like to sit usually. So I'm looking forward to sharing with you all about that.
And if you want to either grab a calendar that you have like sitting on your desk, or if you want to just print out an empty Google Calendar, if you're one of those people that likes to doodle as you go, we invite you to do that during the break and come back with
all on the resources page. So print out a calendar, get the task tracker. Those are the two elements that we're going to be talking about. So if you're prepared, if you want to utilize it while I'm talking, I'm happy for you all to do that. So grab away.
So we'll be starting again at 10:30 Pacific Standard Time. But Amy, while we go on the break, could you screen share the resources page, or Veronica, could you screen share that so folks can take a look? And I will drop into the link so if folks want to be able to get to it quickly and be able to see some of these things like the giving table template or the donor love audit, such great tools. You can hop in and take a look at how to download these yourself and start to use them right away. So if you want to take the inspiration while we break, we'll leave the screen share up. We'll turn off our mics and cameras for a few minutes just so everyone can get a glass of water, and we'll be back at 10:30.
We'll actually be back at 10:25.
10:25. Sorry,
We'll be back then. Thank you all.
10:25. Hello. Hopefully everyone's had time to grab a glass of water, take a restroom break. We're going to get started in 5 minutes, but I did just want to remind folks that if you have any questions, Serena, I saw you raise your hand a couple of times. We want to make sure to answer. So raise that hand. We can have you turn on your mic and ask that question when we come back, or drop it in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll make sure to get to it. So if you have questions, if this has sparked some thoughts for you, we want to make sure that your questions are getting answered. So we'll get started here in 5 minutes, but be sure to drop those for us so that we can make sure that all your needs are getting answered. Hello, hello. As we come back from the break, I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to ask any questions. So feel free to raise your hand if you want to unmic and chat with us, or drop your questions in the Q&A and we will be sure to get to them. Erica, we have a couple of questions waiting for you all in the Q&A. So when we're ready to get started, I'll let you know what we've got so we can answer and get folks great resources. I was just clicking around the tracker, and I immediately started thinking about all the ways that I could use it to develop an analysis for a board, for a committee, just to help people to get a snapshot or perspective. I think so often when I'm in a committee meeting, I hear, you need to, or you should. And it's so nice to be able to give perspective so folks actually have the information to build from. Thank you for those great tools, Amy. Well, as we come back, we have some questions. Do you want to kick off with questions first, or do you want to jump right into your stewardship calendar?
We have time after this stewardship calendar that we can answer these specific questions. So all these questions that I see here, great questions, by the way. We'll answer them right after this session. We'll give
Excellent.
time for that. What do you think, Erica?
Yes, the first question too about identifying donors for an org that doesn't have any. I have, by the end of the session, I'm gonna have like 42 ideas.
Okay, Bethany,
Okay.
get ready.
Yeah.
Bethany comes from an organization that had a deep major donor base into an organization that is really grant dependent specifically. So what a great question, Bethany. And I see Zarina, who was raising her hand earlier, got her question into the Q&A. So we'll need to make sure to get that answered too. And Lorna, we will be sure to get everyone a video recording. So you won't get the slides, but you will get a video recording and then the link to all the resources. All right, Erica, we'll kick it back over to you all.
So I am going to be leading the session, and I'm way too excited to be talking to you about calendars. So I know it's a weird thing to love, and it's intensely practical, but here's the deal. So when your donor stewardship plan is only living in your head or scattered across sticky notes in 5 different tabs, or when it was just talked about at the board meeting, it's no wonder if it just keeps falling to the bottom of the to-do list. Does this sound familiar? It sounds familiar to us. So today is all about giving your good intentions a home. So we're going to build a real stewardship calendar, the kind that brings rhythm to your year, takes pressure off your team, and keeps your donors and your community feeling seen and appreciated on purpose. So you'll get some tools from us after the session, or you can go to the resources page and download these items. And I'll be tossing out a few prompts along the way. Love to hear from you. Feel free to drop those things in the chat if you're watching live. But most of all, just soak it in. You don't need to do everything. You just need a system that helps you do what matters most. And let's be honest, most of us didn't go into fundraising for the spreadsheets. Maybe I did, I don't know, but most of us didn't. But we can use them to reduce chaos and keep things moving in a way that feels good for your team, your donors, and your community. So let's get started. So why this calendar exists? Let's start with the why. So we work with dozens of organizations, child welfare, housing, health literacy, you name it. And regardless of the mission, the need was always the same: a clear plan and a system that does not overwhelm. So when we walk into a nonprofit, we're not walking into a blank slate. There are already programs running, there's events coming up, board members asking questions, volunteers to wrangle, funders to report to, you know the drill. And some of the teams we work with are already using tools like Monday or Asana. And if that's working for you, that's great. Please keep at it. But when we came in, normally what we really needed was a shared, easy to understand system that could bring everyone in quickly: the development team, the executive director, the bookkeeper, the program staff, and everyone needed to come onto this very quickly. There wasn't that much time. So we started with something really, really simple: a Google Calendar and a shared Google Sheet. And so there were no logins to manage, no training needed, just a clear, accessible way to track what was happening and when. It let the development team take the lead while giving everyone else visibility. And just off the cuff, I'm thinking of like board members who always want to help you in these fundraising activities. And sometimes Monday and Asana was just a little bit too much for them to deal with. So these Google Sheets were perfect for them. And so what we're going to show you today is that exact system, something that has helped our clients stay focused, stay connected, and get the work done together. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about the tool. It's about making sure your donors and community feel connected, cared for, and followed up, as we said before, on purpose. And so that's what this calendar and tracker makes possible. So what the year looks like. Before we look at a full calendar, let's start with what we're actually planning. There are four that we're going to mention here, big types of donor and community engagement we like to map out for the year. So events like galas, appreciation gatherings, open houses, appeals perhaps in the spring, the summer, year-end digital Giving Tuesday, reports like impact updates, newsletters, campaign follow-ups, and relational outreach like thank you calls, donorversary emails, holiday cards, and there's, I'm sure, a ton more. And so these are some of the buckets we're building around. And when they're planned very thoughtfully and spaced out, they help create rhythm, they create consistency and breathing room for your team and your donor. So now let's take a look at how this plays out on a real calendar. There's a sample calendar. This is a sample calendar we created for our fictional client, Swifty Serenades Foundation, which, yes, was completely inspired by my daughter's Taylor Swift obsession last year. It drove me crazy. But it's a fake nonprofit, but the structure and strategy behind this calendar is very, very real. So when we enter an organization, we don't start from scratch and we don't impose a plan, but we start by collaborating with the team on what's already happening internally. So we ask questions like, what's on your calendar already? When's your gala? When are your retreats, your board meetings, or big program events? When does the team usually take time off? And so we take a lot of time to understand the existing rhythm of the organization because you already have one. And so our job is to build a stewardship plan around it, not on top of it. Then we layer in, as you can see, in pink, the appeals, blue, reports. You can make this any color you want, but these are my favorite colors. Green, events, and purple, which is relational outreach, like thank you calls and postcards. So what would your ideal year look like, and how would you start slotting it in now? Drop one idea in the chat. We'd love to hear it. So you'll notice it's color coded, which I love. It's clean, which I also love, and it's easy to look at. And so that's the goal. We want the whole team coming in, not just the development team, but the program team, your executive director, your board members, to look at this and say, yeah, I get it. I know where I fit into this whole scheme. And so one quick reality check though, this example looks really tidy because it's a demo. So real life is rarely this polished. Usually, oftentimes we're planning things last minute, and I get it. But even a halfway built version creates a lot of shared expectations. It makes the rules clearer and there's a lot less stress. So it's not about filling every week. It's about making space for thoughtful outreach all year long and keeping your donors and your community in the loop with a lot of intention. So this is kind of like a broad year of what I think would be a lovely year. It rarely plays out in person. So let's backward plan the big moments. So let's talk about one of our favorite tools, and it's backward planning. This is the piece that helps you go from crisis mode to calm mode. It's how we help clients set realistic expectations and spread the workload out. So we'll walk through two examples. One is the year-end appeal. Number two is the fall gala. So with the year-end appeal, if your appeal needs to hit inboxes or mailboxes the week after Thanksgiving, that's normally when we would like to send it out. You can't really start the week before. You can, but it's going to be a lot of late nights. So we work backwards like this. August, we start story planning. Who are you featuring in your story? What permissions do you need before you go ahead with writing that story? In September, we draft it, we review it with your team, and then you finalize your content. In October, or even you prep for mailing, you could start the segments in September, October, whenever you'd like, earlier the better. Then you determine the envelopes, the printers, the mail house logistics. The second example is the gala that's in September, the blank space gala. So if your event is in September, we're usually backing that timeline up to January. That's when you can start the launch, you can assign volunteers, start procurement, send out sponsorship outreach and packets. In March, you can maybe even do pre-event thank you touches and early sponsor shoutouts. And post-event, you can send impact updates, schedule thank you calls, and even plan a gala sweep appeal if you have time. But now, full honesty, these are ideal timelines. We don't always walk into a client's calendar with this much lead time. Sometimes we enter at the 11th hour and we make it work. But what we've learned is even if we didn't get to do it early this time, we can shift earlier next time. So if you're in a tight timeline this year, no shame. use this as a reflection moment and say, next time, let's start earlier. Let's start with August, not October. And so even small shifts like this can bring in a lot of breathing room. And backward planning helps your entire see what's coming. Because oftentimes, when the gala is in September, everyone thinks that it's concentrated in August and September. No, you can start way earlier to make sure that it's easy for you. And when you backwards plan, your executive director knows when they're needed, your board knows when to show up and who to call, and your staff can help prep materials without last minute panic. And this is one of our observations, one of the simplest ways to create a lot of calm, clarity, and collaboration in your fundraising plan for the whole year. So the task tracker, my favorite part. Now we're going to shift from planning to actual execution. So we can have the most thoughtful and ideal calendar in the world, but if we don't know who's doing what and when, it's just a wish list. And so this is where our task tracker comes in. It's just a simple Google sheet. We've tried numerous things and we've landed here with our clients, but it's easily one of the most helpful tools we use to make sure things get done. We've adapted it over time and use it with nearly every client, whether their budget is 600K or 3 million. And every initiative, your gala, your appeal, your impact report gets broken down into small bite-sized pieces, like write the appeal, that's one task, review the draft, create and apply segments, schedule the MailChimp or constant contact emails, send thank you cards, import contact notes, log gives and track follow-ups. And I know we mentioned in one of the questions, board members being involved in thank you notes. They can be part of this. They can look at the task tracker and see who their people are and be consistent with them every quarter or every month. So each task is assigned a lead, a due date, and often includes a link or a helpful note. And it's collaborative. Your executive director, your program lead, or board chair can see where things stand. There's no more who's doing that again, or did this go out? So this is how we turn good intentions into real momentum. So we're now going to show you a real life tracker example. Here's what this looks like in action. Like I said, this is a real life client task tracker with names changed, but the content is exactly what we worked on and are still working on with the current client. So you'll notice right away, we didn't have a ton of time. Things were already moving fast. So we broke out every initiative. You're not going to see all of them, but gala, year-end appeal, donor follow-up into specific tasks like create the appeal copy in Google Docs, draft the MailChimp email and segment list, schedule thank you notes, link relevant sponsor packets or social media posts, assign who's logging what into the database. And this is where all those moving pieces live. Each row is small enough to manage, but adds up to real progress. So everyone on the team can see what's next, who owns what, and what's stuck or overdue. And you can see some of them is ED with CCC support. Sometimes we'll say, we'll help you with this initiative, and we'll write that down. Tab 2, which you can't see, connects to the development initiative that you see under initiative that you like sponsorship activity, communication, pre-committed gifts, impact report, gala outreach. So it makes the invisible visible and helps us collaborate clearly without a million email threads. There's not all this email going on. You lose track of your email. You can see it on the sheet. Did it get done? Is it in progress? What's going on? You could jot it down in the notes. What's the holdup? So next one, there's another real life tracker example. This is when we're coming into it when things are a little bit messier. So we're working on this with the client in partnership with Swaim Strategies and the fundraising event company. And you'll see at the top of this link is sheet is a link to Swaim's toolbox kit, which you get if you're a client of theirs, where they expertly lay out every moving piece for their client's big fundraising event. Highly recommend you working with them. They just lay it out so cleanly. And this client was really behind on year-end acknowledgement letters. Thank yous had been delayed. Sponsorships hadn't gone out yet. So we started where they were and used the tracker to get them back on track. So some of the things we did right away, we logged which thank yous still needed to go out. We added upcoming sponsor asks and deadlines. We dropped in reminders for pre-commitments. We flagged the post-event impact report timeline. So this gave us and the executive director of this organization one place to see what was happening, what wasn't, and where the bottlenecks were. And that's okay, because this tool isn't just for staying ahead, it's also for catching up. And so, personal note, I really love this part of the stewardship. As you can see, I love building these out with clients. I love color coding, cleaning up timelines, and helping teams move forward together with clarity. And this helps keep things moving together. This is what helps stewardship feel really doable to me, because sometimes there's a lot of can-dos, and this makes it we will do. So it's not just about strategy, it's about getting things done and showing up for your community on purpose. So the next one. So here's one more zoom in from the same client we showed in the last slide. This part of the task tracker focus is entirely on post-event stewardship. And it's one of the most important things we help our clients map out, because the gala may be over, but the relationship work really isn't. Your donors, your sponsors, your volunteers, everyone who showed up, gave generously, offered their time, services, or in-kind support, they need to be seen and thanked intentionally. And this is where we get really clear. There's tasks like thank you emails and handwritten notes to attendees, sponsor follow-ups and early previews of the events, impact, volunteer thank yous, those who donated their times, decorated the tables, checked people in, or ran the auction. Logging all of that into your database so you can follow up again later. A post-event impact email to show what the night made possible. Perhaps if you have time, a gala sweep appeal to those who couldn't attend, inviting them to be part of the impact. And every one of those steps, it's listed in the tracker. Right now, this is just an idea for us because the gala hasn't happened. It's guaranteed that there will be way more rows and columns about specific donors, specific people to contact. So all these steps listed in the tracker with the lead, with the due date, with the note or a link. That way, your executive director or other member of the team knows exactly what's been done and what still needs to happen. We always say expressing gratitude doesn't just wrap up the event, it sets the tone for everything that comes after, and it deepens trust. It reminds your community they matter. And that's the whole goal of stewardship, to say, you are part of this and we see you. So yeah, where to start? Easy wins. If you're feeling overwhelmed right now, you're not alone. Stewardship can feel like one more thing on an already overloaded plate. So here's your permission slip to keep it simple. You don't have to launch a whole campaign. You don't need to build a 12-month plan today. You just need to take one thoughtful step. So here's some easy wins. A short from the desk of note from your executive director to a handful of supporters. Quarterly impact letter. Erica is going to show you a few examples of reports that we've done for clients. A holiday postcard that simply says, thank you for being part of our mission. Or honestly, even smaller, write a thank you to one donor or one volunteer who stayed late at your last event. Send a quick note to the donor who matched gifts for your campaign last quarter. Email the person who dropped off lunch at one of your program sites. If you could think of anyone, just even in this session, when you're thinking about it and you have a little card next to you, just write it to somebody. That's one of the stewardship plans that you can implement right now. Pick just one, put it on your calendar, assign a lead, or if you're solo, give yourself a doable deadline. Start there. And if the task feels too big, break it down. Bring in your team to help and take it one bite at a time. To me, the magic of this is in the consistency, it's not the complexity. So start small, stay steady, and trust. It adds up faster than you think. So next one, thank you for walking through this with me. We hope this calendar gives you a lot of space to plan ahead and care for your donors and the rest of your community well, not just when things slow down, but all year long. So if you go to our resources tab of our website, you'll get access to that 12-month calendar template. It's just a Canva template, but we are giving you an editable version so you can work on that. The task tracker is just a Google sheet, but we put down some development initiatives and items that you can start working on right away. And other resources we'll be mentioning in our webinar. So feel free to explore those templates, adapt them to your workflow and your team, your rhythms, and start building around what's already happening and working for you. So if you have any questions or want help tailoring to your team, please reach out. We're always happy to share what we've learned.
Well, Veronica, I don't want to reach out. I want to ask you some
Yeah.
questions right now. Can I?
Yes.
Amy, can you drive backwards to one of the trackers so I can ask some clarifying questions?
Yes.
So Veronica, here you have a column that says initiatives, and it seems like you've categorized things like receipts, thank yous, donor reports. Can you explain that category element of why you're doing that or what you're using that for?
It's just to help people understand the specific task and where they are. Amy and Erica can speak into this too, I think, but it helps break it out a little bit better. Maybe go to the previous one. There's a lot more initiatives there.
And we can also just speak to this tool is for our client, but it's also our accountability tool too. If you want to, like, we're pulling back our curtain, like when we have a contract with a client, we immediately move all the things we say we're going to do into a task tracker so that we have high accountability of saying, these are the things we said we were going to do for you. And then to make it easy, like I remember having a professor in college say, I was so overwhelmed. He's like, how are you going to eat elephant? One bite at a time, and this is the one bite at a time approach that Veronica talked about. And so everybody's initiatives will be slightly different. So on page 2 of the tracker, if you've downloaded the task tracker, on page 2 of it, on tab 2, you can actually pre-fill the buckets based on what you are handling. And so it's highly customizable. And so for this particular client, these were the things that we were responsible for. And that's why we have those initiatives. And if you load them into tab 2, they will pre-fill into this first tab. And again, we're just trying to lighten the mental load to start thinking about our work in like blocks and batches. And so this is kind of how we come to that.
Yeah. And those initiatives are really up to your team. When we were coming into this client, we didn't have a lot of time. I think Sam actually knows because we are working on collaborating together. There wasn't a ton of time. So we needed to determine what the specific initiatives were and priorities. We were trying to give everything a priority here. So these are the things that we jotted down, but the wording of it, the naming convention of it can be very different. You can just label it stewardship or thank you and report and just leave it at that. But we got pretty granular on the specific tasks because there were specific tasks that needed to get done so we can move on to the next one. Really up to you how that will look.
I also think, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Veronica.
Go ahead.
I think also on this one, because it's the client, Swim Strategies, TFE, and us, there's a lot of partners that are loving this work right now. And so I think we also wanted to adopt the language that was universal to everybody that was collaborating. And I think that's really important in your task tracker. Like, don't assume everybody knows what a pre-committed gift is. Don't assume that everybody knows what an impact report is. Don't assume everybody knows what a pledge is. And so I don't know all the things, and I've been in this for a long, long time. And so I think this is also the beauty of the task tracker is depending on like how seasoned your team is, that everybody's speaking the same language. If there's clarity, the action will come more smoothly.
Well, and there's a couple things I want to point out too, just from a like third party perspective for folks about utilizing a tool like this. We have a service offering of diving in and kind of creating that like emergency, we call it Gala 911, like my event's coming up and I have some gaps and I need help. One of those gaps we often run into is that there has been a stewardship gap, that there hasn't been communication to donors. And when that's the case, we reach out to the Cause Catalyst to partner with us on that. Having someone come in and just do that analysis and assessment of what's possible in the time frame we have, I have seen a couple of light touch, quick stewardship activities move the needle tremendously for the outcome of a gala. So this is such a critical piece, but the way you all use it is also incredibly resource filled, because any organization who's using this can now use it to bring into every conversation to fill your agenda about, okay, committee, board, staff, here's the tasks at hand this week. And then to report out, here's what was done last week, and here's our updates, and here's what now needs to be done this week. So it keeps everyone really clearly on track. and it allows for there to be a central communication hub. So having a tool like this, I think, can be a really easy way to get everyone on board. So you're not just sort of steering that ship alone, but everyone's there helping you with your stewardship efforts. This is an example on a short timeline, but you could have this as a tool that you're using all year long, which we do have organizations that we use a tool like this all year long. And this allows you to have report outs to your board, which I think so often what we experience with boards is that they get told but never asked or never invited in. And this is a way to invite them in by giving them a task, assigning them a to do, and then following up with them in the next board meeting to say, how is that going? There was a question in the chat about engaging, or I think it came in actually from Serena Boyce in the Q&A about identifying stewardship activities for board members with like assigning them 4 relationships to just cultivate throughout the year. Serena, this is a tool that I would use to do that, that you then identify in each line, board member A taking this donor out to lunch, board member A taking that same donor and inviting them to our volunteer night, calling and thanking that donor, so that you have those activities really specifically spelled out. And I saw someone say, Veronica, that spreadsheets are not their thing. I want to say spreadsheets are Veronica's thing. I wish I could crawl into your brain and understand how you do that. But that's why reaching out and getting support or utilizing a tool like this, or just asking Veronica, how could I do this better? You can utilize her brain to help you develop a tool for your tracking needs and how to move your engagement along.
Because let me tell you, when we come into a client situation, we come in with executive directors or development teams that are absolutely brilliant. They have the best ideas in the world. They're trying to move their mission forward. There's a lot of things running around in their brain. They're just absolutely brilliant. But then I see a gap between these wonderful ideas and like, is it actually happening? Or is it happening at a pace that the whole team can follow? Oftentimes it's hard. I think it's a lot of it is in their head. So one of the things that we try to do is identify what are the small pieces to get this to your brilliant idea. I want to see this flesh out. My hope is that your brilliance and your love for the mission comes out in this way, but it has to be broken down because it's overwhelming for your team. It's overwhelming to your program staff. It's overwhelming to your grants administrator. And so breaking it out like little like this makes them feel empowered. Like, wow, I can actually do this. Like this is possible when it's broken out little by little. Sam, did you want to say something?
Yeah, you have a question that I think is actually what happens when it's overwhelming to you. The question of, do you develop a tracker like this for yourself to help manage your own tasks so that you feel like you can really keep yourself accountable?
You know, because it's just for me, no, I don't. I do this because we do this purely because it needed to be collaborative. Before, I am purely a post-it notes on my computer, or I have my own, I put tasks on my Google Calendar when I know that something is due. But I need a lot of collaboration. I want to specify this. When I need a lot of collaboration with other people who need to finish their task or they need to see where I'm at. So rather than, hey, how are you doing? We rarely see the clients in person. A lot of it is over Zoom and email. So they can see real time we're doing it. And I try to log in a ton of these notes on the right side are Amy and my notes. It may not make sense to you, but it makes sense to the leadership team. And so they know what's going on. And sometimes even in, I'm sorry, Sam, but in your toolbox kit, we have been writing extensive notes so that it's really clear, like when it happened, what day it did. It's in a color so that they know what's going on. So no, I don't do it for myself. I don't do it for myself. I think I'm pretty mindful of like what's coming up and putting it on my calendar. But when it's a collaborative effort and it's with a team, especially not with your own team, like you're going across, then I would do it. One thing I do want to mention for the board, if you do want to do this for the board, is that a lot of times when we talk about donors with the board, we do want to keep donor data private. Sometimes there's even board members who are major donors who don't want their donations to be so public. They want it to be anonymous. So one of the things that we do for our board members is that we create I know this is another spreadsheet, I'm sorry, but like we create another spreadsheet for them like this. We duplicate it with that donor information and call them, reach out to them without really noting what their gift was. We can just say they gave big in this way. You give a note and then like this is how they gave of their time, their resources, to make sure that there's some anonymity with them, like with their gift, especially if they did not intend for that to be a public gift. So that's one way we try to honor the donor and their wishes, but also wanting them to get the proper gratitude that they should. So we know what they gave as a development team. And so we can make sure that the stewardship activities, we can tell the board what to do. So you create another tracker, I'm sorry, or a spreadsheet. I mean, if there's other ways, we've tried so many things, and I think we roll with all sorts of different kind of leadership, some who are very practical and administrative and some who are not. They don't like to be in it. But this helps keep it moving forward. And if they can't be in the spreadsheet themselves, then we check in with them. We often have weekly meetings with them and we go, how's this going? Did you contact me? Check in with them to make sure that these things happen. And then we'll check it off on the list. But yeah, Amy and Erica, did you want to say something? You guys both unmuted yourself.
Well, I was going to say that in this tracker, what Veronica usually does, like we try to have one central document for our clients because usually there's a level of disorganization with the work that we're doing. Like they've actually asked us to help because like they haven't been able to solve it on their own or they're short staffed or whatever. So what we tend to do is this task tracker becomes very full, has lots of tabs. So we try to keep all the initiatives in there. And so as it's appropriate, like you probably have giving policies, the board probably has some policies around like what kind of information is shared. I mean, we all, I think, adhere to very similar expectations and policy, but your organizations can have its own unique thing. So just make sure you lean into that and you make sure that your sheet is appropriate for that policy and for privacy. But I like usually in my experience, boards are not able to help because we haven't given them enough time to help. And so I want to backwards engineer this a little bit. I want to go back to the 12-month view. And we actually get to the 12-month view by literally using, I'm not sure if you can actually see this very well if I hold it right. I mean, it's like a calendar. Can you see it? Sam warned me about this. Anyways, it is literally just a copy of the April calendar. So like we actually, when we do this activity to get to the sample calendar, we print out like 14 months of the calendar. If you could see Amy's office, she has like this massive calendar on the right. And the process that we do to be able to get to a place where we can get people on board to help us is we start out by, you can't see this either, my pen, it's like invisible. I just came in view. Look at that. This is a colorful pen that has all this different color coding. This is my version of color coding. Veronica does the spreadsheets. I do like pen and paper, but I literally like, we do this usually in December. We start filling out our calendars first. And I want to give everybody, like, I want to charge you to do this. The first thing we do when we plan out our calendars for work is we put down all the holidays we're going to celebrate, all the vacations we're going to be taking, all of our significant dates, birthdays, graduations, all of those things. We populate those things into the calendar first on paper. And then we go to the org calendar. Like, what are our big things? Like, what's the gala? What's, when are we going to have different kinds of events? When are we going to have appeals? When are we going to be? So we start plotting that into this calendar. And we start to see like where there is and where there isn't space before we even get to this step of this 12-month view. The reason why I'm bringing this up right now in this conversation of boards is if you want your board to help you, you have to plan it on your calendar. You can't tell them like at this month's board meeting when half of them aren't there, oh, by the way, next month, we're all making calls. It's not going to work. We've been in that position before. And so you have to also plan it in your calendar. If your plan is for board members to have a list, of donors that they're going to be calling, they're going to be stewarding, you have to like backwards engineer that several months. I would almost even say at your annual meeting, you're going to be like, FYI, this year as part of your board commitment, you will be making calls, 4 times a year. You will be asked to steward 4 donors. This is what it's going to look like. This is how you're going to do it. This is the form you're going to get. This is the information you're going to get. This is how you're going to report back to us so that we can put that information back into the CRM. So I want you, when you think about your calendar, to be thinking about those little crevices in your calendar of like, wow, if I want to be able to empower my board to do XYZ activity, I have to empower myself to be prepared enough and to begin coaching, teaching, onboarding them to the document so that there's plenty of space to create clarity, to maybe even go with a donor to a meeting. Like, hey, I have a meeting. You want to see how I do these donor meetings? Come with me. You can come with me in February. And that way, when you're on your own in April, you'll be totally confident. So this gets really granular, but these are the things that snag us up and prevent us from being able to do these kinds of activities. So I just wanted to take a little pause just to let you into my brain and how I think about it. And I and my team, usually I'm the one that's most front facing with the board. And if I present an idea to them with like less than 60 days in front of us, I can almost tell you that I'm going to be disappointed. And we've already done the work. That's the thing. We've already done the work. We've created the sheet. We've made the instructions. We've done all the things, but this is not their full-time gig. And if they've missed a meeting or two, they're going to be behind. And then when you're behind, I don't know about you, but when I'm behind, there's like this anxiety, like works faster. And our board members too, they'll just peace out. They'll be like, oh, I can't help because I missed that meeting. I don't know how to do it. So again, plan it in your calendar. Like if you do the sketch and you could see like, hey, like August for us, we take a lot of vacations, travel, back to school type of thing. So August for us, like we try not to plan a whole lot in August. And you may have a month that you identify as like, oh man, I'm not going to be there for that meeting. So that means I have to talk to them about it in July, which means I have to be prepped for it in March. So this is how we think. And I would like to say it's actually how Veronica thinks. I do think like that because I'll tell you, somebody put in here that they're not a fan of spreadsheets. And I said, I'm warming up to spreadsheets because these systems, these processes, they allow you not to have to do it by yourself.
Yeah. And they're simple. There needed to be some sort of simplicity in order to move it forward. The more complicated it got, the harder it was for people to do it. So I actually see a question here. Sam, I think you're jumping in with the question. I see it that relates to this topic that Erica's talking about. She says, Honora, you can correct me if I said your name incorrectly, but what are some successful ways that the board and staff both engage in fundraising and stewardship, especially if board is not used to fundraising activities? Before we engage them, I would break down those specific fundraising or stewardship activities and ask them what they want to be a part of. That comes early on. And if you know that they like to meet people in person, have them meet people in person. If you know that they just want to be behind the screen and write notes, have them write notes. The way I've seen boards most utilized in with a client, I'm thinking of a specific client where they just had a gala. The way their board, they bought a table. They made sure to invite people that they knew would raise the paddle at the gala. So that was one of their responsibilities. Not every board member did that. I can think of a few. And then post activity, we identified 3 or 4 board members that would make thank you calls for that giving table, for the specific giving levels at that gala. So we had 3 of them make 5 calls, made it really easy for them. I think sometimes when they think of fundraising, it seems very nebulous. They're like, what does that mean? How is that related to the mission? Break it down into simple tasks and ask them, what do you want to do? And when they see, oh, it's like a gratitude note is a stewardship activity. Yeah, just if you want to do that, here are your 10 people that you can write an email to, that you can call. And they followed up. Right after the event, we had 3 of them call. One of them said they couldn't do it, so we came in. To be honest, some people don't have the time or capacity, and we're like, that's fine. But one of the board members, man, she made so many phone calls, gratitude phone calls, and then wrote us notes about what those conversations were so that we could put in the CRM so we know going forward how that conversation was like. So I think, especially your program team, I see this a lot too. They're like, we're not fundraisers, we're not the development team, but break it down into small tasks. So after year-end appeals, after you see who gave, that time, they can write thank you notes. They can write very personal thank you notes to those people. So those are small tasks that I can see, and then you can keep engaging them once they know what those activities are that you want them to do. Some people will say no, and that's fine. And some people will rise to the occasion and say yes to you. And I'm sure Erica will have a ton more to say about this.
I wanted to add to Sabrina Walker Hernandez is an expert on board engagement and developing boards. We have an episode of the podcast coming out with her where she identifies the percentage of activities for stewardship and fundraising, and that the ask is less than 10% of the fundraising activity. So when you're trying to think of activities for your staff or your board, there's a couple of really key, easy tap-in activities of how they help your fundraising effort. And I would say the first one is relationship cultivation. So identifying a couple of people that they're always cultivating. That means that they are talking to them on a regular basis. They're dropping them little notes when news comes out. I wanted to make sure you saw this news from our organization. The second one is personal story sharing. So what is their connection to the cause? Why do they work at this organization? Why do they volunteer their time at this organization? The third one is the hosting, the buying a table, hosting people, inviting people to attend, making them feel welcome when they're there. The fourth one is the thank you and the follow-up. That like, I'm just so appreciative. Thank you for your giving. This is the impact you've had. So that you have lots of activities that help your fundraising that are not just asking. And that as a development staff, you can attend and ask with a board member, with a staff member. You can do the ask instead of the board member, but they will have cultivated and maintained and built that relationship over time. And to the like simplicity of tools, one of the easiest tools that we use with organizations is that if we have an organization that works in an office space, they're in an office together, we take a giant Post-it note, stick it to the wall, like big brainstorming sheet, divide it by the months, and identify the 4 donors that they have a relationship to that they're cultivating, and put their name on a big sticky note. And then they just simply move that sticky note from month to month every time they've made another point of contact, just to keep that relationship warm and connected. And it's an opportunity as a development team to walk in and be like, hey, Veronica, how come you haven't talked to Erica in the past 3 months? There's our newsletter coming out this month. Can you make sure that you personally send it to her and make sure that she gets it? Simple ways that people just feel like they are part of an organization. As a donor, I can feel the difference. I understand when my gift is something that's appreciated and valued because of that stewardship work. Just little teeny touches can make a big impact.
Yep. So my brain is firing fast at the idea of that. It's basically that Post-it note is moves management on paper, and it's visual. You can see it. So I totally love that. And I loved just talking. I love that you referenced that 10% of stewardship activities is asking. And it's totally true. I always tell people when they're, wanting to ask, like, how do you ask people for money all the time? And I'm like, I don't, because stewardship does it for you. Stewardship does it for you when you stay in those fundraising activities. And I referenced this on one of our earlier sessions today, that I was working with a younger board, and younger in what I mean is like they just hadn't been board members before. And so I did a session on what are fundraising activities. And I'm going to bring that up again because I feel like we have to just always be speaking to what the fundraising activities are, not necessarily fundraising, but what are the fundraising activities? And at that meeting, I remember I slowed my roll a little bit and let them kind of design their own plan as a board, like what feels comfortable to you. Let's have a conversation about it. And so we had a conversation about it, and people were able to like talk about, well, I feel comfortable doing this kind of activity out of these activity charts. I feel comfortable doing this. I'm a little bit nervous about that. And they designed their own plan of what their self-diagnosed board engagement looked like. And it was amazing. And one of the things, I think the question that we had in here that we talked about a little bit was like, how do you get board members to like actually do the activity? And our model of the Cause Catalyst is like a do it with you model. Like we think that's like the best way to go. Like we teach, we empower, we coach so that when you no longer need us on your team and you've grown and you've strengthened the muscle, that all that we've done together, like the resource stays within your organization. It doesn't go when our engagement ends. And so we feel like it's really important to like do the show you how, walk with you. And I when I have the opportunity to do this, I take board meeting time and we do the activity. So again, this goes to planning. And our team, this is how it would go. I'd say, hey, I want, let's just use an example. Like we wanted to make sure major donors got a special note with their invitation for a gala, knowing that we really wanted them to be there, or we really wanted them to consider buying a table. So if we had the invitation, we made the time to like handwrite a note. Well, that means that if I want to bring those Post-it notes with those invitations and have board members help me handwrite that, that means like 3 months before I have to talk to Amy. Amy, can we get this invitation done? Can we get them ordered and mailed to my house? Do we have do we have pens? Do we have Post-it notes? Do we have the list of who this is going to? And then I let the board know a month before, like, hey, by the way, at the next board meeting, we're going to spend 20 minutes of our board time doing this activity together. I tee them up. I give them the wording if they need a template, or I let them, some people need to be told exactly what to say. And we script stuff. We script stuff for people. We take the friction away. And then we slot the time. We slot the time together, and we plan to do these invitations with these handwritten notes. We lick them, seal them, stamp them, send them together. And that's a really empowering time too, that we show them how to do it. And then they get the win as a team that they said they were going to do this activity. They learned how to do it, and then they did it. Now, a pro tip here is to be able to report back the next board meeting to say, hey, you know, those invitations you all sent out, we now have four people that have stepped up and they're buying tables. So we have to celebrate those victories too. So I just wanted to give that example of like how can you get a board on it and show them how to do it and let them be confident. And it really does move the needle. But again, planning it, you can't, if it's rushed and stressed, it's going to create a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty makes people like pull back. And we want people to step in.
So Sam actually wrote in response, these are great, I want to read it out loud, is build relationships, share news, share personal story, act as a host, invite people to attend, welcome people when attending event, a volunteer, follow up with gratitude calls and personal notes. I'll note here that they're usually board members for a reason. They love your mission. They love your organization. They are great hosts for a vision party. So bringing along their network and community to learning more about you. And so that's like another opportunity as well. We have a ton of examples. You get all sorts of board members, right? Some really shy and some really, they love to be out there and play to their strengths, really play to their strengths and what they would like to participate in. And they will do it once like they feel like they can handle it. It's not working against their weaknesses, you know, and things like that. So yeah.
I had one other thought. There was a question in here about, do we have a tracker for ourselves? We have a team tracker. So we tend to have a tracker per client. That's how we kind of organize. So we work in the tracker for like non-client, I say non-client work. We have our own Cause Catalyst tracker that we use, but I would say like 75% of our work is done through the trackers that we create for our clients. But Edith, you could totally make one for yourself if it holds you accountable. One other little trick I do, which I think I talk about this tomorrow. If I don't, I'd do it now just in case. But sometimes if I need an extra like reminder, I'll schedule an activity like on my calendar. But at the same moment, I will send myself an email and I will schedule it to send on the day that I need the reminder. Like I do this a lot with my donor engagement because I do a lot of front-facing major donor work. And so I will send myself, like, if I have an hour that I've planned to do donor calls, like I will just send myself an email saying, these are the 5 people that I'm going to call, and say I've slotted myself to do it at 9 o'clock on Friday. I will schedule it like 8:50. I'll get an email in my inbox saying, Erica, you are making calls to these 5 people. So those are like super easy, accessible, free, like no friction tools that just help us stay on track. and stay in the work of daily stewardship.
And we need time. You know what we do? We schedule time. We schedule time to do the tasks. Whatchamacallit, my husband and I, this is totally off tangent, but kind of related to this. We travel very differently. He loves to travel and just wander and get lost, and that just stresses me out. And I love to slot time for everything that we do. So I slot time for the time that we're going to get lost. So in that same way for our team, we really have to slot. There's so much client work sometimes that needs to be done, or even our own personal work that needs to be done. We slot time to get a lot of these tasks finished. So we say Thursday, 1 to 3, we really need time just to do our own personal work. Those are not necessarily on trackers or anything like that, but on Google Calendars, when I put the task on, it's blaring in red until I finish it and say that it's been finished. So that helps a lot. There are multiple tools out there, and honestly, I think we will keep saying it. These are the tools that we use for our clients, but use the tool that will work for you. And sometimes it is the more complicated systems like Monday. Sometimes it is a Google Sheet. Erica's all about the pen and paper. We're just trying to show you how we kind of work collaboratively with our clients to make sure that things move forward, that your good ideas actually happen. So yeah.
And because I am a paper and pen kind of person, on my team, we have to plan for that for me. Sorry. But knowing, and as soon as I speak an idea forth, I have to be ready for it to move fast with my team. And so we just had this discussion yesterday in preparation for this of like, because my process is slightly different, how I approach creativity and how I approach these tasks, like we have to plan for that on the team. Like, oh, Erica's going to need this like incubation period to like sketch it out on paper before we hand it off to the team to like load up into all the digital realms. And so knowing your team, you will design a path forward that feels like it has low friction, but high ROI.
And
oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So to just wrap up the calendar process, the reason why we do it is that we've seen teams like program and development and your executive director feel empowered when they saw certain tasks being done. Like a gala feels so big, but when they see these small pre-committed gifts happening because they accomplished the task at hand, they felt so empowered to keep moving forward. And that's what it is. It's an encouragement piece as much as it is like an accountability piece. And so keep it simple, and it's like seeing the steady wins after at the end of our engagement with the client. You can see the whole lot of things that they did, and it's letting them see there were so many tasks and items that you finished. Look at you did it. And so we want to make sure that you can feel that way too after approaching big situations. So
and the backwards planning, if you print out your 12 to 14 month calendar and you sketch out all the things that in your life, friends, we have less time than we think we have. There are a lot of things pulling at us. And I think it's a great, just like we did the donor audit, it's another great checkpoint when somebody on your board's like, hey, we should do this, or we should add that. Then you can pull out your paper and pen calendar and be like, whew, well, I don't know how that's going to happen. I have 2 days. I have 2 days in this month. I have 3 days on this month. Because literally after you do this exercise on a 12 to 14 month calendar, there's not as much time and space on there that we think. So that's also why we do that activity, because it just helps. It's a guardrail. It's a guardrail for us in our time so that stewardship doesn't get squeezed out. Amy, did you have anything to add? I think you went off camera or you went off mute for a second. And I didn't see
No,
that.
I think you said what I was going to say. So
okay. Okay. We're synced. So thank you, Veronica, for sharing your genius with us. She keeps us so organized and keeps projects moving forward and to the finish line. So we wanted to give plenty of time to talk about it because it is something that has really helped us to be successful for our clients and for our clients to be successful in their work. So we are at the end of this session. We do have a break right now, and then we only have one session left. And the next session is about high dose stewardship. And we're going to be talking about 3 real life examples that happened recently within our team of how high dose stewardship really moved the needle and deepened relationships with a few of our donors. So I think we just have we went a little over. So we have about 6 minutes. If everybody wants to take a break, go to the bathroom, fill up your water bottle, and then we'll come back for our final time together.
Great. We'll be back at 11:25. And if you have questions, if that brought up ideas that you want to make sure, especially as we come back and talk about high dose stewardship and opportunities, be sure to drop them in so we can get to them as well. So we'll be back in at 11:25. Hello, welcome back. We are here at 11:25, so hopefully everyone had a chance to take a bio break, get some water. Erica, I'm curious as we jump back in, for those who are major gift officers, which a lot of the folks I see on the call play that role of either development director or major gift officer, how big of a portfolio do you think that people can effectively steward and like really build a relationship with?
So I manage a portfolio and I have 150 people on that portfolio, but they're people that I've stewarded for a few years now. And I feel like I really can't take on any more than what I'm doing with them without sacrificing quality. So there's a lot of math that we can drill down on, like how many can you appropriately do. I mean, I've talked with other people who, they have 70 people on their major donor portfolio and that's all they care for. And I think there's a lot of questions we have to ask. Obviously, like this portfolio that I am working with, a lot of them, I should say a lot, there are a lot of, because I'm building out areas for them. And so some of them are like prospects. They're not quite at their threshold of a major donor, but we think there's potential. And so I think there's lots of those kinds of questions to answer in regard to like what is a major donor for your organization, because it does take quite a bit of time. Like it takes me about 10 hours of time from the time of wanting to schedule. If it's somebody I know, it's about 10 hours of time by the time I write a note, make a phone call, schedule an appointment, go to the appointment, travel back from the appointment if I'm in their area. So that kind of helps to like put some parameters around how much time it really takes for like one in-person engagement with a major donor.
I think it's sometimes nice to have that kind of like benchmark. I think I've often heard 75 for a major gift officer is kind of an average, but
Yeah.
I think one individual said that it's lack of staff that really keeps folks from stewarding. And I think that having that idea of a benchmark helps people to understand what their real staffing need might be, or how to leverage, or how many people to create a portfolio for other staff members who are not on the fundraising team. So thank you for jumping into that.
I will also say too, with your major donor portfolio, I think it also depends on who is supporting you. Because if you don't have an admin team supporting you and you're like creating your own reports and doing your own CRM work and all of that, that number is going to have to be less because you're going to churn your major donors if you don't have that admin support. All right. Are we ready to jump in to this last session? How's everybody doing? Hopefully I'm hoping you feel more fueled than tired. I hope you feel more hopeful than unsure. But this last session that we want to talk about today, we call high dose stewardship that leads to opportunity. And we really just wanted to allow everybody to get in our brains. Like we talk about all these things, and the things that we do, but we wanted you to kind of see how we think about it and why we think about it in a particular way. So this session is all about 3 case studies that we have from our office that really demonstrate what is possible when we are intentional about our donor stewardship. And this is across all tiers and donor levels. So from the person that gave $1 to the person that's giving $100,000. These are some examples that we have seen really deepen engagement with the donor, letting the donor have a much more like meaningful, enjoyable experience with the organization and the work that your organization does. And I mean, the impact of it is people get the help they need. So that's what we get excited about. So first, let's define what we mean by high dose stewardship. I don't even know if it's a term. We use it in our office. So we thought we should probably tell you what we mean by that. So for us, high dose stewardship equals consistent, meaningful touch points customized by tier. So it's not a one size fits all stewardship approach. It is, I want to just say like consistency, regardless of what you're doing, consistency might be the best ingredient to add to your stewardship. When you are consistent, a donor feels it. Like I've received things from organizations that I've sponsored and or I've supported, and I get something like I get something in the mail, and sometimes it's like, oh, they're sending this to me again. Or it's like, oh, you know what? I wonder if they were still around. Those are kind of the ranges of what can happen in stewardship. And I've had that experience before with an organization that got my gift last year, didn't do anything with it. And then guess what? It's November again. And all of a sudden, she wants to meet with me to talk about a gift. So anyways, we want to be consistent. We also want to be meaningful. We don't just want to throw something out there. Everything we send out from our office, we're always thinking like, why are we sending this? What do we hope it's going to do? And who are we sending it to? Like we ask some of those critical questions so that, I mean, donors don't have a lot of time. They're going to be flipping through their mail. We talk about it a lot in our time. Like I like getting mail in my mailbox, most mail. I like getting most mail. But there's like donors that are like Veronica, like, oh, send me, like, save the stamp, don't send me a thank you note. So, we're dealing with that range too of donors. So it doesn't require a large team to be able to have high dose stewardship. It just, again, this is like our buzzword for the day. It just needs a plan. So this is really where we started to see some magic in our own stewardship. We take the giving table, which we've been talking about a lot today, and then we pair it with Veronica's tracker, and then it turns into really actionable plans that we actually can do. We can actually see to the finish line. So you're starting to see kind of like how we think about things, our process, and the tools that we've put in place to be able to make these ideas actually actionable plans and come into reality. We prioritize the activities that are going to sow the greatest amount of fruit, paired with those that have the least amount of friction on our end while bringing the biggest impact. That was a lot I just said, but really we have learned, we've been in this long enough to be like, wow, what are the things that are easiest for us to do, the least amount of friction, the least amount of frustration, that are high quality and meaningful, that are going to actually like produce something. And so that is what this session is about. So the first person it's the first case study that I want to share. And this is about Mary, and she is a stellar volunteer. So this story about Mary, I actually didn't really know who Mary was. This was a database that we inherited that was like abandoned, neglected, misused. And it actually was the database that I was working in by myself when I was like, hey, Amy, are you looking for a job? um, because this is a long time ago, my friends, but this was the database that we inherited that I was like, I am not going to be successful in this job without some help in this database. So according to the database, I knew that she had been a super volunteer who traveled internationally to support the building of schools in Mexico. Because of that, she was still on our mailing list, and she received emails, and she received some snail mail. At that time in this organization, it was definitely a one size fits all plan. Everybody got everything. So regardless if you're given $100,000 or $35, you got the same stuff. And lo and behold, after a few years after Mary hadn't been volunteering actively, she just did that one trip. But Mary responds to our year-end appeal, yay, and she gives a gift of $35. So Amy is a genius, if you haven't already figured that out. And she adds a little something to our response card to engage our donors, especially with this particular organization. We didn't know most of the people. Like, we knew a very small fraction of people. And so we were really trying to like find ways to engage with donors. And because this work was international, the majority of the people that supported this organization, they were never going to actually be front facing with the kids in Mexico with the work. Just that's how it was. Like, some of you probably have organizations like that where the access to the work is harder for volunteers to engage with. So Amy actually had put on the giving card, and we have a little example of it. She put on the giving card, the response card, I give because, and we asked people that when they give a gift to fill that out. And so Mary, she went ahead and she gave her gift, and she wrote on her note, I've personally volunteered at this school and know firsthand how much these kids depend on a healthy meal at school each day. So part of the program was, it was a school-based program, and one of the things that the organization did was like provide a healthy meal. So a lot of the kids at the time in this area, this was the only meal most of these kids received. And Mary was there and she saw it happening. So when when we got this note from her and her $35, we at that time we gave everybody a handwritten note because we were really trying to engage with people, and we let her know how touched we were because we saw this. And almost anybody who does the I give because, we try to make a personal phone call to them. So it was paired with a personal phone call, and then followed up a few months later with a story infused update about the happenings at the school. So we kind of re-engaged her. Um, and so she knew how the school was doing, and she had then talked with me personally. She had emailed with me, she had texted with me. And then it was at that time again of the year where it was year-end giving, and we sent out a holiday gift catalog. So I got a phone call from Mary, and she had a question about an item in the catalog. She was interested about funding the school cafeteria. And the way we did the gift guide was, you could either like do a share, or you could, you could donate the entire amount and fund the project by yourself. And remember, Mary, to this point, Mary had only gone on a trip and she had ever donated $35. So Mary calls me, and uh again, I didn't really remember exactly who she was because we only had a handful of connections. But I had my handy dandy database that Amy like really, really cared deeply for and kept it organized. And in that database, in the constituent file for Mary, it had her little I give because. So I was able to be like, ding, ding, ding. That's the school where she volunteered. That's the school she bought the meals for. And that's the school that's in the gift catalog. So because Amy had put that no I give because note in the database, me as a major gifts officer, I was queued up. I knew exactly who Mary was all of a sudden. I'm like, oh yeah, she went on that trip. She gave the gift. This is like, she's been there. She's had feet on the ground. So when she called me, when I was able to call her back, I was able to call back with a lot of confidence, knowing that we had followed up, we had thanked, we had connected. And I just remember like this serendipitous moment when Mary's like, I want to fund the cafeteria for my 70th birthday. So all of a sudden, Mary went from giving $35 as a one-time gift to this cafeteria was $5,000. So that was a huge gift from somebody who in the database hadn't showed us otherwise that she had that type of capacity, but she had that kind of propensity. This was something she saw and she experienced herself. And so I wanted just to share that story. It's one of my favorite gift stories because it was just so unexpected and it was just so perfect. And it just demonstrates like the things that touch our hearts. Like we want to do all we can to make it possible for somebody else. Mary, I learned later, was a school teacher. She also grew up really poor and didn't have access to food. And so this opportunity to have kids educated and have kids like have access to food, like that was like, if she could do that, it was so wonderful. So I just wanted to show just the way that we built a really fun relationship with Mary. So as the cafeteria was getting built, I was able to share so many fun updates with her. This isn't the case for all of our things. Like we have some clients that are like, it's a little harder to draw the story out of like the impact that you're making. You know, it's not as physical and visual. This obviously was a very physical, visual thing that I could report back. But we were able to do really fun progress reports. I was able to send her pictures as it was happening and text messages, and I had the opportunity to travel down and actually see the project happening. So I was able to do like one of those iPhone videos of like, hey, Mary, I'm right here. I think we actually even did a FaceTime. So those are some of the tools that I was able to use with her to engage her. When it was all done, the program director did a virtual tour. It was very like, much more formal. They did a ribbon cutting, all those things. And then at the end, when it was all done and kids were using the cafeteria and the kitchen, we were able to put together a written report close the deal, like say, thank you so much, Mary, you made this possible. And obviously we were able to add her name to the building. And it was just like a really special, it was just a really special, story that it's going to stick with me forever. And I just remembered, like, this is some of my best fundraising, and it wasn't the most polished, but it was just relational. I had a conversation with Mary. I listened to Mary, I understood why this place was important for her, and it made sense that she wanted to give her time and money to this place. And she was getting older, and it was getting more difficult for her to travel, so she knew that she wouldn't be able to give in the same way that she had historically, going for 10 days. And so now she was giving. And I remember Amy and I were recounting this too, that we remember in this process, when we would send things to Mary, like thank you notes to Mary, Mary would send thank you notes back to us. And it was just, I'm smiling about it because it just makes me so, so happy. But this is an example of a stellar volunteer turned into a donor for life. And I just think that, I mean, we cared deeply for Mary and the things that were important to her. And lucky us that she, in return, cares so deeply for these students in Mexico who really just needed a meal to start their day at school every day. So it was just this really joyful opportunity. And I feel like these high dose stewardship touches, like I talk about these, again, they're high dose, they're not fancy. The pictures, the text, they're thoughtful, they're meaningful, they're planful, and we do them. And what comes out of it is just a beautiful surprise. So that was our story about Mary. Amy, I know, Veronica, you didn't get to work with Mary, but Amy, did you have anything to add before we go on to Brad?
No, but I did get to meet her once, and she was just a lovely person. And yeah,
Yes,
that was
it
really
was
cool.
like, yeah, it was like we were doing her this big thing, it was like, I know, it was just, and this is what happens, when people get these transformational gifts and opportunities, and you align them with the right thing and you serve them well, like it turns into these moments that you just are unforgettable. So here's another case study from our team. And this is about Brad. Brad also puts a smile on my face because, I mean, there's lots of reasons, but so I'll give you all the timeline for Brad. Brad was invited to our client's gala by a current donor. To my knowledge, he didn't really know much about the organization, but he's unable to attend. But even though he couldn't come, he gave a gift, and he gave it via his employer giving platform. And this is more like Sam's genius too, like when in the event space, don't forget to do like the regret gift opportunity. If you're gonna spend the time and the money to send out an invite, like have the language ready for like, oh, I can't come, but I'd love to give. And when you do that, please get their address. Please get their address. I cry when I see gifts come in without any addresses. I think I might have cried on this one actually. So he gave a gift during through his employer's giving platform. And the funny story is there were so many things that went wrong with this gift. So I'm just so delighted that it had a good turnout. So when he gave the gift, some reason we did not get notified about the gift. So the thank you was like super delayed. So not to make, to make things a little bit worse, not only was it delayed, when we got his information, all we had for him was his name and his email. So we weren't able, and the gift was $1,000. So for this organization, $1,000 would trigger a personal phone call from the ED or somebody from the development team. And so finally, when our ED reached out, this is the other thing that happened. She transposed his first and last name. Like they were names that, could be the first name, could be the last name, vice versa. So she called him by his last name. And so it turned into, this conversation. Brad was totally chill. He's like, it happens all the time. People call me my last time as my first name all the time. So no problem. But RED was her, showed up as a true human. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I will never mess up your name again. So again, I just want to say it wasn't perfect, but the connection and the humanness was. And so he, not only did he give his gift for $1,000, but it was also matched by his employer. But again, we did not have his mailing address. So we only could rely on this email this email, it's like we only could communicate with him via email, which isn't like the end of the world. But as fundraisers, we all like to have addresses, right? Like if we don't have their address, it's really hard for us to send them a handwritten thank you note, or send them a printed report or an invitation. So we did follow up with him via email, and we let him know this organization provides family time visitation. And so we were able to send him a report and via email that just let him know like how many hours that he was able to provide for families, and we thanked him for that. And then before, because this was like it was in September, the end of September, um, and there was that delay, which we didn't get a very quick thank you to him, even in the like after we got the information, it still was like it was delayed. So I wanted just to go through like what were the action steps with Brad. So we send an email appeal to him. So now it's year-end giving. We send a year-end appeal to him, and he gives. And we give him a call to thank. I when he gave this time, he did it through our giving form. He gave us all the information, and I gave him a thank you call. Our ED also called, and they were able to like, laugh again. He's like, "You got my name right." She's like, "Yep, I got your name right." Our team wrote a thank you note. And this is a story of a first-time donor who actually, by the way, I knew this, I know this now. He's 30 years old, so he's very young in his career. And he then turns around and gives a gift of $5,000 within 60 days of his first gift. Now, this is a dream for a fundraiser. When you get a gift at 1,000, they match it, and then like, sometimes those gifts are just like one-time gifts, but we were able to win him. We were able to win him in to giving. And I now text with him. He sometimes will text like, "Oh, good work. So excited to see that happening." And in a very short amount of time, through somebody we didn't even know, gives a gift. We care for him well, and we continue to care for him well. We're very human with him. We have a plan, and it turns into I'm pretty sure Brad is going to be a donor for life. So we will see how this relationship grows. But these were all very simple steps. They're very simple steps that we employed. But again, I want to go back to our giving table. The reason why we knew we had to reach out to him is because we pre-decided that anybody at 1,000 above would get a particular protocol. And so when that gift came in, it triggered the protocol. So we all knew what we were responsible for doing without having to have any hangups of deciding who was going to do what. Any questions about Brad? Amy, did you want to add anything about Brad?
No, but I think that it's really like reiterating that it wasn't perfect. We didn't thank him within 48 hours. It was like months delayed, but then when we did, we were just very human about it. I'm sorry this is delayed. It got lost in the, our email or whatever. We didn't get the notification. So, I mean, even we did something. We didn't panic and think, "Oh no, we can't ask him again because we haven't closed the loop." We just closed the loop very quickly. And yeah, it was not perfect, but we still did something.
Okay, I want to add here to the last bullet point because there is actually a lot of research and data about the second gift. That if you can secure a second gift within 90 days of a donor's first gift, it is 84% likely that they will become a lifetime major donor to your organization because they're giving you indications of their interest, and you've indicated to them that you are paying attention and you're stewarding them. That second gift is such a critical benchmark for moving someone then into your major donor cultivation strategy. Which leads to this question that Serena asked. Serena, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Please let me know if I should be saying it differently. But the question was about the differentiation between major donors and mid-level donors. And if you don't have a budget to be able to support hundreds and thousands of stewardship activities, she's like, "I feel very confident in my major donor giving. How do I now move into a mid-level stewardship program without a big investment and without a lot of budget?"
Well, congratulations first, because you've cultivated those major donors. And I say we are working actively with a client right now that has a pretty big mid that we're moving up. And what we have done what we're doing with them is we're adding another cycle. So what I mean by another cycle is we're adding one more touch to those mid levels, um and I'm trying to do more personal. So we actually have, sometimes that means your giving table is going to switch. So maybe you break out that mid and maybe you bring up the top 15% of what you've designated as your mid, and you start giving them maybe some of the same cultivation strategies that you're doing with the major donors, and you add them in and you grow them up. This is probably a whole nother like webinar we could probably do, but I love to do a deep dive in our mids. I love mid-level donors. I feel like there's so much opportunity in mid-level donors, and there's just some really easy things that we can do to engage them in deeper ways that are still within scope and scale of our time. So I think that's what I would suggest is like, what is something you can add to a portion of that segment? If you have time to do something special for all of them, I would just add another thank you, add another report, add another video. I would say whatever is easiest for you to do right now, extend to them, start customizing more of their things. Tomorrow, I think we have some examples of some printed collateral that we create that we actually use for all the segments, but we just slightly modify it, or we add a note, or we send it in a different way. So tomorrow, I think, which session is that? Is it in the afternoon? It's like the second to last session. So if you're not here live, be sure you watch it. But it's so simple. It's just we create collateral and then we pre-think about how can we use that same collateral and get it out to everybody in the most personalized way within the time and resource that we have. And again, if you don't have money for it, but you have time for it, I mean, you can do plenty of things via text. You can do like sometimes like with mids, I say, hey, I just sent this to you in an email. Like say they just got it in marketing. They went through the marketing channel. They got it in in MailChimp or something. I sometimes will screenshot it and I will send a text and say, hey, Susan, I just got emailed out this morning, but I wanted to be sure you see it. Specifically read the story on page 2. It made me think of you. Like that's a free, easy touch. And I like to use the word a lot, refurbished. Like we refurb and reframe like the same thing in lots of different ways, but we bring it down to a more personal touch. Hopefully that kind of answers your question. I will answer it much better tomorrow with examples and slides.
I know you're not talking about the tool slide, but I wanted to recommend that you talk about the tool slide, because a tool like that, slide or bomb, 2 tools you've introduced me to, can allow a very quick, low effort way to have another very high impact touch to those mid donors. I'm thinking, for example, of an event I went to where the executive director you were working with had a ton of travel that happened after the event. And then all of a sudden one day I got a voicemail message from her that said, hey, I was just thinking about our time together 3 months ago. And I just want to reach out with another personal thank you to say, thanks for being there. Thanks for being such an important part of our organization. Now, because I know you and I know that you set that up, I know that that was recorded once and sent to 500 people that were all at that event. But as a donor, I felt like it was a very personal touch. It took the executive director a few minutes and it took you all a few minutes to set it up. And it appeared in everyone's voicemail that had been at that event that had a phone number. So just that idea of like, when you say, just add one more touch, I want to give that like very concrete, specific way that one touch can be powerful and personal and impactful without being super time consuming versus like reaching out individually to all of those folks.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because in our minds we do this all the time. So we know our little shortcuts, and they're not even shortcuts, they're just upcuts, really. Like it's just, again, going back to our definition of stewardship, it's us trying to care well for everybody, and we don't have enough time to care for everybody in the same way as we want to. So we use tools that help us care for our donors in the same way, but via a different avenue.
Yes, and Amy is actually tomorrow going to, so when we tell the executive director or the leadership team about Sly, we usually give them specific instructions because we don't want it to be so canned, like them reading a script saying, thank you for your da-da-da. We want it to be fairly natural. So Amy's going to actually demonstrate an example tomorrow of something that just seems very scripted. And I usually they go that route because they want it to seem polished. And I'm like, but your gratitude should be very personal. We know that it's going out to a number of people, like 100, I think it was like 150 people at once or something like that. But you still want it to be a personal note of gratitude. And so Amy will show the difference between those two. So you'll see it tomorrow. But we love Sly. It's a way of personalizing the thank you and the gratitude from the voice of the person who's representing that organization to a number of people all at once. And I can't tell you right now how the cost is. I think it's fairly minimal, but
It's 10 cents a call.
it's a call.
It's 10 cents a call, but you can also buy batches, which make it be like 6 cents a call. It's very inexpensive. And I get so many phone calls back. Like that's one thing that I always tell people like, hey, FYI, know that we're sending this fly out at this time because it connects it to your personal cell phone number. And so when people like, I get messages all the time like, oh, Eric, I'm so sorry. I always miss you when you call. And I'm like, wink, wink. Because it rings once and it leaves a voicemail. And so a lot of people don't realize that it's a voice message, but if it's canned and it feels like marketing, that kind of messaging, people are going to know. But I always just let people know like, hey, your message is going out and people will call and text you back. But most often it's a text saying, oh, Erica, thank you so much for your message. It was so nice to hear your voice. Boom, done. Warm touch, high dose. Isn't it fun just appreciating people?
That's our favorite part.
It is our favorite part.
It's not the end. The event's not the end. There's more stewardship that can always happen after.
And we drive this point home. We're little nerds. We always say that the fundraising happens after the event. Like it really gets good after the event. And SWAM team knows that how we think. It's like, okay, now we have all of our stuff. Now we can go play. And it's about having a great plan before you need the plan. And that's how we're able to do these things quickly. Like we knew this ED literally was like leaving the next day to go on a trip. And then it was going to be spring break. I'm like, oh my gosh, if we don't like get this stuff like tooled up and ready to go, follow-up's going to be like 2 or 3 weeks later. And then what's the point? And I don't want to say what's the point, but you lose that synergy. Like if you get it out to them quickly, they're still feeling what they felt at the gathering. And then when you call and you thank them, you just solidify like, oh my gosh, the gift that I just gave was the right thing to do. It was at the right place with the right people. And these people see me and they care about me so much they called me. And so then when you later down the path, and this is kind of going back to our question, later down the path, when you've applied these touches like via Sly or a video through BombBomb, and then you're like, you know what, I have an extra hour today to make some phone calls, and you decide to just pick up the phone live and you call some mid-level donors, they're going to remember this is not the first time that you've touched base with them. In live time it is, but then it just, all those touches that you've been building up, they just like elevate all of a sudden so you can use these tools so that you don't have to always be live and personal with donors, but that you can still be personal and meaningful and thoughtful and timely, because it all adds together. It's all in a big bucket and it just keeps putting into the love bucket and the bank, and your donors feel appreciated. As they feel appreciated, they're going to continue to give. And this last example of this case study with Susan is a same example of this. So this is an organization that is a little bit more challenging also for donors to engage with. They do pediatric cancer research. And so, there's just not the opportunity for donors to sit down with researchers and sit down with families. There's limited opportunities for people to engage in the work. We love this work. We love this organization, and their major donor was really starting to take off. And we were trying to like prepare. They really hadn't developed like what their cycle of stewardship quite was. And we were getting ready to kind of go into year-end giving and the gala season and like another like high time of asking. And we wanted to be able to like pull people in before all that asking to give people a report, a thank you, on like what their gift is doing in the space of pediatric cancer research. So we suggested doing what we call it a because of you event. And I think somebody else in the chat talked about these events that you are also doing. We call them because of you. We try to do like a little happy hour. And for this particular organization, again, the region, like it's very local. And so donors, it's growing, but for the most part, there's, there's a lot of donors that live in the same space. So something like this in person makes sense for them. And so, we had our giving levels. We knew like what their constituency looks like. So we knew kind of what a mid and a major donor was. And so we had one of their corporate sponsors host this party in their space. We also had most of the food, most of the wine was also donated by other sponsors. And the event itself was just like a mingling. It was mingling. It was, charcuterie, wine, dessert, and a report. And this was, I just wanted to clarify, this was a non-ask event. Like I like was very, very firm. This is like, we're just saying thank you. We're just saying, we're expressing our gratitude. There is going to be no talk of asking for money, nothing. So it was a beautiful event. It wasn't very long. It was in a really nice space that was like, helped like the corporate team, they actually like set it up for us. And we really just had to roll in there with the charcuterie. I think they even were handling the wine for us. And it was just a beautiful event. And at the end of the event, it was one of the researchers shared, like we were able to bring a researcher in, and he shared about the research that was funded by this foundation and on how it was impacting kids. Like there was a trial going on, and he was able to give live examples of like how he was seeing tumors shrink. And so he was able to share like how important it was to have funding from this foundation in order to be able to do this research. And because of that, kids are living well and surviving cancer. And it was a very compelling short story. And then, of course, we heard from the ED who kind of shared the vision for the upcoming year, like that up close and personal, I want you to know first type of report. And then at the end of this gathering, there was a donor, Susan, who had, is a major donor, and she'd already given her gift for the year, but she went right up to the ED and said, we need to get together. I want to discuss a year-end gift out of my DAF. And so, of course, we didn't ask for any money. This is where I tell people, well, I don't actually ask people for money, because I rather do the stewardship and let it come. Like I do ask for money. I do. But the more you do the stewardship, the less you have to ask. The more you align and communicate well and appreciate your donors, these gifts do just start dropping. So I just wanted to share, like, what were the steps that happened between her gift in March and at the end of this Because of You event. So after their gala, she received a phone call from their board. Their board's really good about making these phone calls, and pretty quickly. She also received a handwritten note. In the fall, we used our giving tiers, and we pulled off the top who got like a full printed annual report with a handwritten note from the ED. That took some time, but these were donors who were well qualified, who have been giving for a long, long time, and we wanted them to have a personal note from the ED. And the ED like planned that. We helped support it. We had, we made them the letterhead. We got everything printed. We got the envelopes. I think actually for that one too, I think I even had to like lick those ones myself, because I think the ED was going on a vacation, and we wanted to make sure they got in September, because of You was going to be in November. So everybody got those reports and with those handwritten notes with imperfect handwriting, and they hit good. So then when we followed up with the Because of You invitation, we had a great response of people that, sludged over there after work on kind of a slimy wet day. And there was a full room, and that donor, who usually just gives once a year, gave another gift of $10,000. So again, like our giving table helped us to even like tee this up, and our giving table helped us think through like, what are the components, what are the touch points in the outreach that we can make between point A and point B to move the relationship deeper. And this donor now, like what I love about it now is this particular executive director was a little bit nervous about asking people for a gift, but she's not uncomfortable doing all the fundraising activities. So she has high follow through on the fundraising activities. And because of that, it's really brought down the stress of asking. Now it's not so stressful for her to ask, because she doesn't have to ask very often. So anyways, I just wanted to share this experience because, through all of them, the commonality of all these three examples that we shared, we had clear systems. Good care was at the heart of all that we were doing, and timely follow-up was designed in in all of the pieces. So these are the components that we see are the components to strong stewardship that will always carry your mission forward through any season. And we're in a tough season right now. I've had more tough seasons in fundraising than easy seasons. If you have easy seasons, we should talk. This work is hard. And so, I mean, these are the pieces that we know help us through any season and ensure that we have the people who care and the funding we need to be able to do our work. So I just want to end by saying stellar stewardship wins donors for life. And that's what we're aiming to do. We're wanting to be the donor's charity of choice. We want to take care of them. We're going to help them take care of other people and also fulfill the things that are important to them. But really, stellar stewardship really wins donors for life. And that is what good stewardship will do over time. So we are coming to the end of our time. We have a little bit of time, but other questions, thoughts, aha moments before we wrap up?
Erica, there were two questions in the Q&A that I wanted to loop back to. One was a question about the current times that we're in. You just mentioned that it's a stressful, hard time for fundraising right now. And the question that the person answered was, how truthful should we be? You commented back to that person about like honesty is always the best policy. I wanted to add to that for folks who are trying to figure out that balance right now. When your federal funding has gone away, your donors should be informed about that. When your programs are being impacted, your donors should be informed about that. But when you are informing folks about that, I also would recommend that you include two key items, which is how are you responding as an organization to that? And what is the need that they can help fulfill? So it's not just a barrage of sort of alert, because that's definitely the state we're living in right now. The whole nonprofit sector is being impacted. If you're not speaking to what's currently happening, I don't think that you sound relevant or current. So I think it's important that you do share that information, but that alert should come with, here's the action we're taking and here's what we need from you. Because as a donor, my gut reaction always is, oh my God, what can I do? So you want to give people that like call to action of what they can do and how they can participate.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to move to a second question.
I was going to say, I'm so glad you brought that up. We actually have a client, it's our first client that has really had a hard hit from what's going on with the funding at the federal level. And it's a big hit. And we're asking the same question of like, what are we going to communicate? And there was, but the board was like, oh, we need to not alarm them. I'm like, well, no, it's a true story. It's a true story. And like you say, as a donor, you would want to know you've invested into this thing and you want your investment to be cared for and protected. And if you knew you could help by doing something, you would. And so by not being honest, you limit, like you limit yourself. You also limit the relationship. And I think like right now with this particular client, we're having a conversation of like what that letter looks like. And Sam, you just helped us solve a problem of those two pieces of like, this is what we're doing and this is what you can do, because you don't want to leave people hopeless. And you also want to know that you are actively seeking solutions. And this right now in this present time, this is what we're doing. And this is how you can also do something. So again, it's that two-way relationship and conversation. And you might say, like, the letter might be, this is what we're going to do. There might be other things, but we don't know yet, and depending, like your donors who've been like most engaged, they might have like this genius idea or a person or a foundation or a solution that you might want to have coffee over and chat about. So, it's always scary though, sharing bad news and hard news, but it's part of the process too.
It's true. And it's important to do right now. Otherwise, I feel like very quickly you become irrelevant. And a lot of people will sit and wonder, like, well, are you going to be around tomorrow? And how are you being impacted by this? So I think that's important. We did have a question that came in that was not specific to stewardship, and I wanted to address it real quick and give some resources. So this is from an anonymous attendee who asked a lot about sponsorship, and specifically about the fact that they have a venue that they get sponsorship for. Large venue is easy to get sponsorship for, but their smaller venue has not gotten sponsorship. Friend, I encourage you to email me. I'm going to drop my email in the chat. Reach out because I want to provide you a whole slew of resources about sponsorship, and I'm happy to engage in conversation with you specifically about how to design something for that space, how to engage folks in that space. Corporate stewardship is slightly different sometimes than major donor stewardship. So while they can apply and they can be similar, in the sponsorship world, the one thing I want to make sure everyone is clear on is that you are still stewarding, but you are stewarding the decision makers at that company or the relationships you have at that company. I think that companies often and corporate sponsors often get asked, their logo gets put on a bunch of stuff for an event, and then they never receive anything else. And then they get asked, and then their logo gets put on, and they never get anything else. And yet, when that decision maker has a relationship to you, just like a major donor, they will become a part of your organization. They will advocate for you out in the public. They will advocate for folks to join your board or committee. They will bring great people to your events. So stewarding the individual that is the point of contact at the corporation is the key element that I would add to your stewardship plan. And then for additional tools about how to fill sponsorship for your small venue, reach out. I'll be happy to get to provide whatever I can. I want to make sure we leave any time for any other questions. So if you have a question, drop it in the chat. But Erica, Veronica, Amy, I want to ask you, what should folks be prepared for tomorrow, or how should they best prepare for tomorrow?
Well, I hope everybody gets a little bit of rest after the session. And I wanted to leave you first with this question of like, what's one stewardship activity you want to put in motion this week? And I think on the slide it says, what do you want to do this week? But just get in motion. What is one stewardship activity that you're like, you know what? You spoke to me about that and that one hit. I want to do that. So I would encourage you to put that in the chat. Also noodle on it, bring it back tomorrow, because tomorrow, in regard to what's coming up tomorrow, today we like laid some groundwork for like why we do things. Tomorrow really gets into like how we do it, with what tools do we do it. And so I thank you for your time, and we're excited for tomorrow. Tomorrow's schedule is very similar to today's. We have 2 breaks. It's going to be, I'm thinking, Amy, do you want them to do any work in there and bring any numbers for tomorrow out of their database, or does that not matter?
I think if you had an idea of different tiers, then you could maybe apply some of the strategies pretty quickly. If you kind of had an idea ahead of time, it would kind of give you a little jump start.
Yeah, that's great. I think that, and then if there was definitely an area that you want to bring better emphasis to and move forward, like having that in your mind tomorrow as we work things through, like you can do some prepping like in lifetime. Well, something we're passionate about, like going to trainings and going to conferences, is when you leave with something started and in motion, the likelihood that you actually finish it is so much higher. So like we like to do a work with you type of model, like I've shared. And so tomorrow, like bring that idea, bring that thing, that seed you want to bloom, and we can mastermind it together and get it into motion for you.
And
Also, if there's any questions that come up between now and tomorrow, or if there's a question that you hope that we can address during our time tomorrow, you can email those to me as well. And our team will try to like weave them into our time together tomorrow.
And I think a very practical thing is that we'll show you a ton of stewardship collateral that we utilize for these various giving tiers. So sometimes we don't have time. So to make it sustainable for you, we'll create this one piece of collateral. And how do we break it out? How do we personalize these items? It's really practical and easy. And that's our hope for you tomorrow. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. We had one question show up in the Q&A that I want to bring to light, and maybe you all can think about this and we can kind of start off tomorrow with a deeper dive into this. But one of our attendees said, I'm not sure we have time today, but I have a scenario that I'm trying to get support on. We had a new donor give us $1,000 last year for the spring annual appeal, and then another $500 in late December. Unfortunately, our email system didn't filter them out when we sent our final email appeals on December 31st, and they unsubscribed. I'm still not sure why they weren't filtered out, but what would you suggest moving forward? I am thinking of just sending an email checking in, thanking them again, and apologizing for the extra email. It's been a few months and I didn't notice that they had unsubscribed after receiving the appeal until recently. Embarrassingly, it was when I was looking at a list for our spring appeal. Any advice, or do you want to dive in with that tomorrow?
Well, we can dive into it deeply tomorrow, but I just want to say it's going to be okay. And kudos to you that you noticed that. And I think there's an opportunity for you to just come into this really human and being like, this made me want to cry that this happened. And I just wanted to call and talk with you about this. I think that's kind of where my heart is in the moment. But I think tomorrow we should make some time, and we can actually we can design a plan to triage this, if that's all right with everybody.
Excellent. Veronica, why don't you capture that question so that you can bring that into the session tomorrow? I know my activity I'm going to do is I'm writing a thank you note right now. Louise says thank you to everyone. She's pumped and ready to go and got lots of great ideas today. So thank you for spending such a big chunk of the day with us, everyone. And Cause Catalyst team, thank you for bringing all your knowledge and insight and resource. This has been recorded and you will get an on-demand link for it.